आपको बेसिकली हेडलाइट के नीचे नहीं पढ़ना पड़ा. देन मेरे जैसे लोग कहते हैं यार दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में मुझे डिग्री मिल गई, बेस्ट ऑफ द कॉलेज में पढ़ा मैं, बट मेरी ना ग्रूमिंग नहीं हुई.
20 घंटे काम करो, कर लो भाई काम. You have $1 billion to be made, so you'll work hard. Good for you. Relax. आप दे दीजिए 11-12 लाख साल के if you can afford it. US never guaranteed you to have a green card. Which are the top 2 countries in terms of research in the world?
Definitely not India.
And mattress भी हमने कहीं garbage उठा के लेके आए थे. Right? I still have nightmares about that mattress. It's okay not to be clear on what you do in life. I'm in my 40s. I'm probably still not clear what I do in my life. Did India go bankrupt over there? India was much poorer in the 50s and the 60s and 70s.
How you see AI adoption in higher education?
Again, I don't think it will replace.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, or as I always say, most of the audience is watching it at 11:30 to 1 a.m. Sleep tight after this. While I talk about the new guest, let me also address the animal or elephant in the room. This episode gonna be very, very interesting because the guest we have is very real, very on the face, upfront, and we don't see such leaders in this space. He speaks his mind, he speaks logic, and he don't even risk of voicing his opinion because that is how it should be. You're already lots of scripted, lots of narrative, lots of points floating in the industry. We only want to invite leaders and folks in the industry who don't shy away to talk about real things. But without doing much ado, let me invite and introduce my very, very good friend. And before this podcast, and this is about to be about us, so he asked that, are we friends? And I don't know. Whenever we meet, we just vibe, we just gel, and we also pull each other leg. He pulls my leg more. He's more senior and he's a part of a bigger industry, bigger teams, more funded venture company. But I try my level best to match his vibes. Saif, how are you?
Thanks, Saurabh.
हम दोस्त हैं.
अच्छा सवाल है. आप लोग कहते हैं what does friendship mean? I think आपने अच्छी definition बोली कि when you meet, you have vibes, you don't mind pulling each other's legs, and you have a good time. I think that's a really good, succinct definition of friendship. So I think by your definition, I think we are.
So my team and lots of people, give me feedback that why I don't introduce people and I let them introduce themselves, which is very different. Mostly, people talk about with very fancy, very build-up introductions. I always say that I'm no one to introduce. A person should be introducing themselves because that's a real introduction.
Right.
So why don't we start with introduction and then we go around your journey and few other things on the way.
Thanks, Saurabh. First of all, again, thanks to the University Living family for inviting me. I think it is one of my life's achievement checked off, and I'm not joking. Because I've seen such some fantastic podcasts by Saurabh and the team, and I thought I literally told Saurabh, "Bhai, mujhe kab bulaoge?" So today was the opportunity.
Over to you.
But again, quick introduction. So my name is Saif Iqbal. I work for an education technology company called ApplyBoard. We are a Canadian EdTech company in study abroad. So similar sector to University Living. I've done a bunch of things in my life. If there's a time, we should talk about my formative years to University of Roorkee, now called IIT Roorkee. Did chemical engineering there. Worked in technology for a bit. Again, a big formative experience that I had was I was an international student myself. So I went to the US. I did my master's there from Rutgers in New Jersey. And again, so I really feel very passionate about this whole study abroad, about students, about even partners, stakeholders, because I think it's an amazing experience. Came back to India, went to ISB 2009. I always graduate from bad years. So because people might be young, but I graduated in 2001 from Roorkee, which was the .com crash. 2009 was a financial crisis. So after that, my friends said, please don't go back to school because we don't know when the next crisis will happen. So anyways, worked a bit in consulting, worked at Snapdeal e-commerce back in Noida, and then finally LG Electronics. Moved back to North America in 2018, and then been with ApplyBoard since the last 5+ years. In terms of what I do, we are, as I said, we are EdTech platforms. We work with stakeholders, partners, B2B recruitment partners and agents who assist students in studying abroad. I also recently looked at the other ecosystem, which is around financial solutions, accommodation, etc. that can again help the student with their journey. So yeah, that's a short and sweet introduction.
Very impressive and very real, as I always say. So, how was it to make it to IIT Roorkee? You know, I know about you. Probably you're from Lucknow. You know,
I say Lucknow, Allahabad. So yeah, same.
Lucknow, Allahabad. You know, so basically tier 2, tier 1 or tier 3 city at least at that point in time.
Even still, Allahabad I say is still a tier 3 city, unfortunately. But
Not now.
कुम तो हो रहा है.
हाँ, अभी तो नहीं हो रहा. अभी तो मैंने सुना बहुत पैसे लग रहे हैं. I got a chance to go through or pass by, so I can sense it. There's lots of investment coming in.
Right.
But coming from Allahabad or Prayagraj, where this aspiration of coming and studying and going, cracking IIT Roorkee came in.
I mean, I grew up in the 80s, and again at that time, I think liberalization started in 91, 92. Again, at that time, the opportunities, I would say India was still is a developing nation, but opportunities the बहुत standard थी, right? The cliche thing, अगर आप पुरानी 80s and 90s की movie देखेंगे, engineer बनेगा, doctor बनेगा, right? So again, by default, I think that was a path. Coincidentally, my father also was a University of Roorkee graduate earlier. He was in civil engineering. So I always heard about Roorkee and so on and so forth. Luckily, I did just about enough to make it through. Again, one of the experiences that I have is in class 9th or 10th में अब तो AI वे बहुत हो गया तब for those people who are similar age as mine, they would remember that we used to code in a language called BASIC. It was called GW Basic, right? So you do if-else basic stuff. So I got a really good interest in that. Class 12th, I remember I had the highest marks in that subject in my school. So I got really good at computer science and technology, whatever you want to call it. So at that time, I think it made sense for me to also go into engineering. Obviously, Roorkee is competitive. I didn't get computer science. I got into chemical engineering. But again, I kept my interest and passion there. And then when I graduated, I worked in a technology company called Sapient out of Gurgaon, long back. So you can ask me all about NH8 and 20 साल से जो construction हो रहा है because
late night parathas and all.
So in that sense, I did have a interest in engineering. I liked computer science technology even at that time. This is 96, 97. So I think it was a natural extension.
Let me go back again. Is it because your father was IIT Roorkee pass out and you have seen, how it helped him?
Right.
And there was already IIT Roorkee pass out, so there were genes and also एक माहौल था, environment था, right? And then you mentioned you moved to, you took chemical engineering wherein your interest was in computer science, right? Is it because of IIT Roorkee tag badge? And if it was that, did that help? Or does student, it makes difference to a student if they study from best of the institute or a university
समझ गया.
and don't do their core course?
I think it's a good. First, I'll answer the first part. First part is which I'm again very outspoken and private about, but I like the opportunities that middle class, upper middle class, rich people in India do have an advantage. I came from, we call it middle class, but I would say privileged background. My father was a civil services officer. He was in Department of Post and Telecom, later BSNL, MTNL. Went to Catholic school in Allahabad, St. Joseph's College.
ICSE?
ICSE board, exactly. तभी मेरी English ज़रा से अच्छी वहीं से हुई है. So again, we came from a very privileged background, and again, that always gives us an advantage whether you do coaching or not coaching because you get that environment. आपके यहाँ बिजली आ रहा है, पानी आ रहा है, right? And you can afford. So hence, again, I don't want to go into the direction here, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So automatically, you get a significant advantage when you go prepare for these competitive exams, right? Which unfortunately a lot of people in India do not.
आपको basically headlight के नीचे नहीं पढ़ना पड़ा.
Exactly. Lal Bahadur Shastri, who was from Allahabad, that's the famous story.
Right.
So again, you come from a privileged background, and then I always had that appreciation that it is. But going back to Roorkee, there were people who came from जिसने कभी computer देखा नहीं था life में, and that guy is doing a senior job at Accenture, a very good friend of mine. There are people who did a PhD actually, who came from a very poor background in Bihar, for example. So at least to an extent, merit does help. There are people who work hard, but again, I'm not under any illusion that I did not have I don't want to call it genes, but I had a clarity and I had a purpose because my dad was from Roorkee. I was exposed to other civil servants or other the professional इतने लोग होते नहीं थे. But that always makes it easier for you to be focused and a little bit driven.
Before I go back to my another second part, but let's say if, so I was from Meerut, right? I come from a family which is business background, so there were not lots of education or educators,
right?
In my family. Of course, my mom, dad, really worked hard to ensure that we study from ICSE school. Our English should get better, because
maybe Shakespeare padha basically.
Yes, Tempest and Merchant of Venice, और अच्छे number भी आए. But so someone like me, and as we always say, India is still a country of entrepreneurs and SMEs or proprietary business owners who probably couldn't or didn't see their parents, or there were no aspiration, or probably there were no one to look upon or guide. So in my case, I'm a factor of a flow.
Right.
My parents worked really hard to get me study in good school. Right. That school definitely formed the foundation.
Yeah.
But again, मुझे थोड़ी सी मैं relate करा. I somehow started studying economics in 9th. I mugged it up. I was liking it, or probably I was scoring it. So I was scoring, I'm like, oh, I'm good at it.
Right.
Let me now quit science and computers and let me, have economics. And I topped in economics ICSE.
Right.
And after that, I'm like, oh, I have topped. I'm good at it. Let me take economics honors in Delhi University. जब अपने औकात पता चली, या पता चला कि यार मैथ्स तो अच्छी नहीं थी, या फिर किसी ने गाइड नहीं किया.
सही.
Right. So and then I'm a part of a factor. But someone today, when we have information, we have career counselors, and we have platforms, and we have all of us. How one should navigate, or their parents should navigate their journey. You are a product of someone. You've been privileged, and there's a importance of education, and there was guidance.
Right.
I am a factor of a product wherein parents are very clear. We need to give them best of the education,
right,
whether they can afford and whatever they need to do it. And we got good formation. Then we chose our own path.
Right.
What's your take on that student who is watching us and probably seeing that, okay, if I want to be SAF, I want to create a ApplyBoard, how should they go about it?
Again, there are different paths, जैसे आपने बोला सौरभ. But आज के दिन पे I think advantage तो बहुत है, right? Again, today I would say any student from almost any background, like internet has made it so democratic that you can go search, go ask ChatGPT or DeepSeek, whatever your preference is, and say, I've done this, and it will give you a fairly good answer. So yes, guidance and environment might be lacking, but at the very least, access to information तो काफी democratic हो गया है. So again, I would suggest if there's a student who's there, and one is that it's okay not to be clear on what you do in life. I'm in my 40s. I'm probably still not clear what I do in my life.
Mid-life crisis हो रहा है आपको सब भाई.
Late life crisis. So it is okay not to be clear, super clear कि मुझे ये करना है. People don't get that clarity, and then they kind of go and do a bunch of things, which is very good actually. So, but at the very least, you should know, okay, at least what are the next 4-5 years, or what kind of top courses or programs are of interest. And best part ये है कि, and if you have people around you, then you should go and ask to people who are already studying or who have already graduated. They'll give you a good perspective. So access to information and some guidance, I think that's the best way to do it. Of course, there are a bunch of assessment tests. There are good companies out of India now which do these assessments, but that itself cannot say, oh, you're very good for become a psychologist or whatever, and then you just take that at face value. You yourself feel a little bit, does this do a sense check, talk to a few people, and then try.
So, as you mentioned about, and I agree, in fact, I always say now in an era of paralysis of information, due to which we have, too much choice and decisions to take.
Right.
It's like information pandemic, and due to which there is a choice dilemma.
Right.
And because they are finances, they are mostly, there are accessibilities of resources. People are confused, and that's why probably they're taking more wrong decision than because of lack of information. But probably that's an advantage, but also that's a very competition, because now everyone knows what they want to do, or at least they have information, and that also with a click of a button and probably fraction of cost. And you mentioned ChatGPT, DeepSeek. So if ChatGPT, DeepSeek are so good, right? Then companies like ApplyBoard, or companies like University Living, or all the counselors who are sitting across your house,
right?
Why should they choose them?
बहुत अच्छा सवाल है basically. It's the same question as 20 साल पहले जब से इंटरनेट आया, लोग कह रहे कि we will not require schools, we will not require colleges. Coursera came, MIT opened up its open coursework. Do people still want to go to MIT? I'm pretty sure they have less than 10% acceptance rate even today. Which I'll come back to the point when I talk about study abroad a little bit, which is that obviously you can get the education and you can be self-taught, but I would say that not everyone is very self-motivated to go and do it and then go and stuff. So for them, the environment, that human factor, right? Agar aap study abroad ki bhi baat kare, which we'll talk about later, people like to ask a human face, because that people-to-people contact, I don't think that will become impersonal anytime soon. Colleges, universities will continue to be good. Again, ecosystem enablers aa jayenge, like again, as I said, Coursera, whatever. But I don't think those education stuff will go away. So the second thing is also important, is that again, Google keh raha hai ki okay, for the longest time we don't need people to have a graduate or like even bachelor's, high school le lo. And you see some really smart high school kid who might be at Google, but that's like what 0.1% of all the engineers. At the end of the day, because of environment nurturing and that education, people become good. Or more capable. So I think it's nice to say that yeah, we don't require degrees and stuff, but degrees and those credentials.
It paved the foundation,
and employers also prefer that, to be honest, right?
It's a filtration.
It's a filtration mechanism, because abadi to badi rahi duniya ki. So for all those reasons, I think these are good enablers, but people to people to a large extent will not go away.
Agree. In fact, I would say it will be a human superpower now, to have our connections with human to human, because now we don't want to meet. If you talk to Gen Z and Alpha, they don't want to meet, they don't want to call, they don't want to be called, they want to WhatsApp, they want to get information in a very isolation. And probably now the problem is not about excess of information, the problem is about personalization, customization, and probably guiding them through, because they don't want to listen. And then there's smart kids, which probably got everything, due to which probably extra advantage over same IQ or same academics level people, because
from the previous generation. I think kids are very smart today. I think I absolutely agree.
But then smart to hai, but बहुत ज़्यादा today's generation, and I'm consider myself as a today's generation, they're very polarized. They're very smart people who are very, very clear purpose like you, or probably there are people like me who are going the flow, we don't know what to do, but probably and they figure out, or probably they are struggling to figure out. So how to, someone who is, as I'm saying, probably coming from a background wherein, okay, they are in tier 2, tier 3, there is aspiration, but there is lack of resources,
right?
Or there is the resources and there is no aspiration,
right?
If we see, you and me will say, what is this nonsense? Think about us. But if we think from their point of view, it's real problem. That's why so much of well-being, mental health, suicides people are doing, or probably they are directionless, because now is the era of so much information and everyone need dopamine right away. No one wants to, they want IIT, but they don't want to put 3-4 years of hard work. Yeah. They want to go to MIT, but they don't want to have patience to build their profiles.
True.
So how to navigate at least those students?
Well, I'm not a psychologist and I cannot...
It's a discussion. It's a because you have done more than 100,000 students all across. You've been meeting with so many educators. You've been speaking on the stages and panels. So you have access to best of brains. So that's why I'm taking the liberty to ask you.
I think a career or the education choice, I think is one outcome that you're talking about. I think the overall job ne baat boli is more about the choices that you make. And again, it's not a easy problem to tackle, but I think some things don't change, I think, from a human factor, right? I think the first is a little bit of drive is important, right? If you have that drive, you will look at information, but you'll be able to filter it out, or you'll do a double click karke and see, achha, let me deep dive into, something, right? So that human drive is always critical, right? No matter what information, what era. Second thing is, again, access, which I think is democratic. And the third thing is, again, let's call it reinforcement of that information and reinforcement of that drive with validation. I think if people do those three things, even in where there's a lack of attention, for example, which is ironic, we should talk about Chat GPT and LLMs later on, because the whole architecture is based on attention, right? I mean, the whole framework.
I've been reading this book, Dopamine Detox. And it's only talk about focus
and attention.
Right.
So I do think those factors, I mean, that drive and that access, all those things are still there. It's just that people have to connect it together. You cannot say, I'll get all the information and then I'll get overwhelmed and I do not do. But okay, filter the information up front before you even say, I mean, you should be clear by now. You need to do economics, you need to do engineering. So, okay, so at least filter it down. Don't go and say what they need to do. Number one. Number two is obviously talk to trusted advisors or friends or whatever can give you some good advice. There are great websites, right? I think Mahesh Perry has been running Careers 360 for a while, right? I really respect that company, right? In terms of clear information and saying things as it is. So there's a lot of good unbiased information today, which is not selling you stuff. So there's no excuse now, I would say, to do it. The last piece of advice I will say, a senior said to me long back, Roorkee ke senior the, I was upset about something long back, and then he said, Saif, career is a marathon, not a sprint. It's okay. I mean, nothing is determining your action today, or what you do for 5 years is not going to determine the rest of your life. So again, especially now, there's so much stuff that can be done. So people should not take too much stress. If you did economics, that's okay. You want to go to computer science, no one is stopping you. Vice versa. As I said, I went and did an MBA. I'm like, I have technique karna, but mujhe MBA karna. And now I feel like, nahi, nahi, मैं tech वापस करता हूँ. It's okay. I can do that today. I can pick up again coding and do it. So again, those choices, but your foundations have to be a little bit strong. You should be a little bit of drive, and that drive might, and your intentions might change. That's okay. But the basic building blocks, agar aapke nahi hai, then yeah, you'll feel lost. But if building blocks are there, no decision, I would say, in life is irreversible.
Got your point. Let me sum it up, because sorry, I put you on a spot and we went very deep.
That's a philosophy.
It was very deep, and in fact, you sum it up and you nailed it. That education is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and we need to be a lifelong learner. I mean, not that I'm trying to flaunt, but if at 38, I got a drive to do a ISB AI leadership transformation leadership, and due to which, even if I have a pseudo understanding, due to which there are lots of adoption at University Living, and we ended up creating an AI lab, which we never thought. In fact, I remember when I used to create our first pitches and decks, we used to mention in a pseudo way, AI powered machine learning, AI ML platform, and now we're like,
no, we actually
so naive of us and so stupid of us, but it's not future, it's present, and everyone's using it. Even who have WhatsApp and they have a prediction, it's an AI, right? It's a pattern, right? But again, summing it up, so anyone who's watching it, especially student parents, so don't worry if you probably don't score good marks in 10th or 12th, or probably you skew your undergrad, or you didn't get those MITs and UCLs and Imperial, right? Even if you end up completing your education, and you are very clear that, okay, what are your passion or what you like doing, and you want to create a career around it. It's okay if you don't get software engineering, but you can start with QA. If you become a QA, I mean, I have a team member who probably started with IT networking, then he became a QA, and now he is a front-end developer.
Wow.
Right? So there are opportunities, and now there's no one path. Yeah. Even with India having NEP coming in, and so much of multifaceted degrees and subjects people can study in their classes or in their schools, the possibilities endless. Coming back to you, Saif, and next part of your journey, you studied from US. You did your IIT Roorkee.
Right.
And generally people say, okay, if you have an IITN, you don't need to do your postgrad and you're sorted for your life, and and I've seen lots of such cases, right? So what motivated you or push you to go abroad to do your masters after doing IIT Roorkee, and where did you study, what did you study, and how that help you reach where you are now? What year was this?
So I graduated IIT Roorkee 2008. Then I worked for 2 years in this company called Sapient, really good company. Again, software engineering,
right?
Lot of learning about how to work in corporate, etc. Right? But again, I was very passionate about computer science. Even at Roorkee, I think I was one of the people who were really good at comp science and subjects. I took some electives, सब इतने होते नहीं थे, but I took some electives. Learned C, C++, Java. I'm actually coding stuff. And then I worked in software engineering. But I always wanted a formal education in computer science. So I applied 2002. GRE had given even earlier in Roorkee, and TOEFL was.
ICSE वालों को GRE देना पड़ता है?
सबको देना पड़ता है. I think again, masters के लिए, I mean, आजकल I don't know, it has changed a bit, but GRE and TOEFL were mandatory. So I gave GRE, I had the score, pretty decent score at that time, and so I applied to a bunch of universities in the US in computer science, which was a little bit of challenge because I did chemical, did work for 2 years, and then to get into computer science was a little bit difficult because again, zara sa as from IT, zara sa ego rehti na that you want to go to top rank, not just anyone. Right. So anyways, I got couple of admits. Rutgers University in New Jersey had a really good computer science program, and they gave me full scholarship, including teaching assistant. And again, IIT Roorkee people had a little bit of ego. Yaar, let's get a full scholarship because paisa kaun kharch karega padhai ke liye. We had a very subsidized education at Roorkee, which again a big enabler, which was very helpful for me and everyone else, right? हमारी 1850 रुपए per semester tuition fee होती थी. This is 97 to 2000.
I agree. मैंने भी अपने undergrad 10,000 में किया है.
हाँ, so I again have strong views about increasing tuition and loan ले लो because I think public education should be as subsidized as possible. I mean, it's insane that we're charging lakh of rupees in IITs or IIMs now and saying, "Arey, the student gets a thing." I think it's becomes initially a जो आपने कहा कि people have different path, but people will not take that different path because 10-15 lakh का loan है. And again, for a middle class, even whatever, unless you're from a rich family, it's a lot of money. And salaries तो आप देख रहे हैं entry level software companies की, I mean, I should not name them. It's not that they have grown significantly since my time in 2001. So anyways, so I applied to a bunch of universities. I got admitted to Rutgers. Again, जो मैंने आपसे पहले बात बोली, I did the same thing. I had a classmate, Rajamani, who was already studying at Rutgers a year before me in electronics. I actually spoke to him. I actually even went to campus because I was there on work. So I could see the campus. I met him. I met a couple of his other roommates who were doing, or friends who were doing computer science. So I got a good sense. I had the knowledge. I validated it. And I obviously applied, and thankfully I got in. Again, I was pretty... अब लग रहा unique है, but I did everything on my own. Obviously, there are great platforms like ApplyBoard today or Counsellors, but I had no idea that they exist. So I did the whole application process. Obviously, I had great seniors who gave me advice on SOP, statement of purpose. I had great professors who gave me a recommendation letter. I even did my visa on my own to the US, right? Again, I thought that was normal how to do it. So anyway, so then I went to Rutgers in 2003, fall, September.
Okay. So you mentioned a very, very interesting point that public education should be subsidized.
Yes.
And here we are, wherein now there are a bunch of school of thoughts, who wants why education should be subsidized. एक हाथ में आप कह रहे हो बेस्ट एजुकेशन होनी चाहिए, बेस्ट प्रोफेशन होना चाहिए, बेस्ट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर होना चाहिए. Second hand, we are saying, it should be subsidized, especially public education.
Right.
And the moment it gets subsidized, there is less resources for any country or any institution to expand their campuses or expand their capabilities or capacity.
Right.
It's my opinion. I would rather make it
market-driven.
Market-driven, and it should be open for demand and supply. And if someone wants to be studying IIT Roorkee, IIM Ahmedabad, and if they would like to pay 40 lakhs, and that's what giving them not only the badge or that status symbol, right, or probably
right,
that alumni exchange,
right,
of IIM Ahmedabad. And for that, if someone want to need to pay 40 lakhs, but there's an ROI wherein they get a job of 1 crore, 1.5 or 2 crores or whatever, 100K, 150K USD dollar, versus limited to the best of faculties to private institutes,
right,
and they're doing great job, right? Because end of the day, it's about demand supply and it's about the great faculties. So if I am a part of IIT, but because it's subsidized, due to which I'm not able to pay that faculty up market rates.
Sure.
If you see, the moment you subsidize, it sounds good, but if you talk practically, there's a repercussions. Probably lack of infrastructure, not able to retain or attract best of faculty, best of experience, and eventually then मेरे जैसे लोग कहते हैं यार दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में मुझे डिग्री मिल गई, बेस्ट ऑफ द कॉलेज में पढ़ा मैं, बट मेरी ग्रूमिंग नहीं हुई या मुझे एक्सेस नहीं मिला, इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं मिला. देन मैं अगर कोई प्राइवेट यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ता and that's why I did my master with a private university. Your take on this?
I mean, this might be a long answer, but I'll try and cut it down into multiple pieces, right? Roorkee was established as Thomson College of Engineering, 1848. It was the oldest engineering college in India. It was established by the British because तब उन्हें गंगा कैनाल बनानी थी to get from Hardwar to Kanpur, right?
Right.
So they need civil engineers to do it, and there was nothing like that. I'll get to the point eventually. But the point is, again, eventually Indians started coming in. पहले राजा महाराजा type आते थे, but eventually people coming in, right? And it was deemed university by Pandit Nehru, I think 1948 or 1950. So it's again a 150-year-old institution, right? Until my time or even a few years down the line, it was publicly subsidized. It continues to be public subsidized, right? Did India go bankrupt over there? India was much poorer in the 50s and the 60s and 70s when Nehru established IITs, IIMs, BRC and all those things, right? We were a much poorer country than before. But if you see the seeds of what was done in terms of public education, I'm सिर्फ IT की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ. Even when I grew up, again, I'll take my father as an example. He studied government inter college Allahabad. He was I think the UP state topper or something. That school was better than St. Joseph's, where I studied later. But when I studied in St. Joseph's, I could not go to GIC because GIC has been completely decimated for whatever reason. So the point I'm trying to say is that all these schools and colleges and Kendriya Vidyalayas, even now, they're very, very good. A lot of people go to IIT, AIMS, DU, come from KV, for example, right? But they serve a public purpose. The public purpose, you cannot put education or even healthcare from a simple point of view के इतना डालेंगे तो इतना निकलेगा. So these are called what is public goods, right? So the public goods can have to be, I should not subsidize, maybe a bad word now, but it has to be accessible so that people who can come on merit can afford it. We cannot say a future outcome, they might make a lot of money, hence, okay, they have to put in now. But that's why taxation is there, right? That's why people, these IITians and I know a bunch of people who have made big companies, right? Who are in a way subsidizing their whole batch. ये पूरे batch की जितनी subsidy थी because one guy became an amazing entrepreneur. And so you know what I'm saying? So eventually these things balances out. I'll give you, again, just to round off this argument, which are the top 2 countries in terms of research in the world?
Definitely not India.
Which are the top 2 countries in terms of research?
It's mainly US and China.
US and China, right? China is heavily subsidized. आप India का अगर आप GDP आप देखें in terms of education spend, I think still less than 2% if I'm not wrong. Look at China. I forgot. It's significantly higher.
It's around 8-9%. And India now 3.5%.
Even in the US, if you look at US, Rutgers is a state university.
It's double digit.
All these state universities, Cal State, आपके Rutgers के, Berkeley के, मैं obviously I live in Canada. आप University of Toronto देखे, वहाँ के जो domestic tuition fee is so accessible, and they give you a loan on top of that. If University of Toronto कल को 50,000 का undergrad करें, and they do charge some of that fees to international students.
Which is a bit.
So if University of Toronto does not subsidize that education, right? I mean, they will not get those technocrats or educators or whatever that is. So all countries which have, even if अगर लग रहा है इंडिया का example गलत है, I'm looking at US and China. They have been doing this for decades now, and look at what they have done. So your argument is not wrong that let the market balance it out, but then there are, if you can't get to IIT, you probably go to BITS Pilani, or you get to go to their fine universities and colleges today, even Ashoka Age, for example, for liberal arts. आप दे दीजिए 11-12 लाख साल के if you can afford it. But again, if you come from a middle class background, are you really going to get a 50 lakh salary upfront? Probably not. So DU is the best choice, and DU will give you probably, maybe to your point, a slightly less faculty, but slightly this. But again, it's a good brand and it's decent education. And if you're self-driven, you can study at DU what you can study at Ashoka.
No, that's the holy grail. You know, if you're self-driven and you are, I mean, I always say why we need to do MBAs and go to best universities and fancy university. Even we are part of this ecosystem. Everything available on YouTube. You know, but you rightly said there's a self-motivation. You need to be self-driven. And most importantly, at time you might be self-motivated, self-driven, but you need that exposure. You need that accessibility.
And that should not be determined by your parents or your economic class, right?
Totally. I know we are going very deep, and you know it's
my favorite topic actually. But I'll do a funny thing. A lot of friends from Roorkee, and I had a long argument once on Facebook or whatever. That's why I stopped going to Facebook. It's a waste of time. Which is that people who were subsidized and said, "Arey, ab kyun hum subsidy de rahe?" So I find this to be a very cognitive dissonance within people.
हमें मिल गया अब आगे मत दो
और बहुत load आ रहा है country पे. But the country is not even spending 2% of the GDP on education. You get what I'm saying?
See, again, let's complete this thought then. You talk merit, right? कि merit में अगर आपको अच्छी यूनिवर्सिटी में मिलता है तो मिलो, but merit है कहाँ? कोटा आ जाता है.
Right.
Then we compare Canada, China. China is subsidized, but then it's controlled.
Yeah.
So if let's say I'm investing in my people, but I know they will be used for the country and it's controlled, and we create the narratives, right? But then in India, all the people we have subsidized, they have gone to US, probably have not come back.
Some of them.
And we all say that NRIs pay back and this and that. We all know mostly it's not coming back.
Remittance to India is the largest remittant country, so it's coming back in some way or form. But if we look at it,
is it the kind of subsidy or investment a government is doing versus remittance? I still don't.
Remittance bhi nahi. I mean, look at us. So many people have started operations here. Do you think if Google में इतने सारे engineers होते, they will from let's say Mexico, they would open a center in Mexico. The largest center would not have been after
Fair point.
in Hyderabad, right? Look at the thousands of employments those expats in a way indirectly affecting, right?
Fair point.
So
good point,
right? So I think net it's a massive boost for India. I think the reason, probably one of the few reasons India is competing, because people had good public education. They studied here, did great entrepreneurship. You in case. Or they went abroad and they still, I mean, whatever you say, people Indians are still very passionate about their country, even though सारी बातें हम करेंगे, but at the end,
the loyalty is there, and then we are passionate, emotional about it.
Emotional about it, right?
We have people around it. Even if you move to Canada, you still have family, so you've been visiting, bringing remittance. Totally agree. You mentioned very, and this is a point which I'm very passionate about: English. You mentioned you studied in ICSC,
right?
Due to which you are good in English, and
हिंदी में भी काफी अच्छी, हिंदी में भी वार्तालाप
अलग बात से हो आप, है ना? मैं कह रहा हूँ इंग्लिश पे फोकस करेंगे, because in the ecosystem we are, English is given.
बिल्कुल.
And do you still believe that someone who speaks good English have an competitive advantage, especially if someone looking to go abroad or even to get a job?
And this is a famous Harvard study or some study. बहुत पहले मुझे पता चली थी कि do you know how long does it take to make a hiring decision in an interview? How long does it take? How long does it take to make अभी मैं interview के लिए आया आपके पास. How long will it take you to make a hiring decision? How many minutes or seconds?
The moment, very good. It might not be, I agree. I'll give you share.
So typically it's 45 seconds, right? You might be the most brilliant guy ever, but again, that first impression in terms of
the way you said
grooming
hello,
stuff. So hence, अगर आप English, unfortunately, or whatever, अगर आप आपकी टूटी-फूटी English आने बात करी, the guy will immediately get biased, even though he might be the most brilliant person for that thing. So
good point.
So that's human psychology. English is one example of.
But is it the same now also? Like let's say I compare from our time, 1980s, 1990s, wherein I believe we still use it at like कि मेरी English अच्छी है या उसकी English अच्छी नहीं है. कोई बोलेगा कोई नहीं बोलेगा.
It's not about English अच्छी है कि नहीं. It's about that impression for 45 seconds, right? So English in a way, or your grooming or the shirt or a tie that you're wearing helps you make that initial impression.
अभी भी ऐसा?
It's human psychology.
With startups happening.
मैं English पे बाद में आ रहा हूँ. Let's ignore English for a moment. But then English becomes a very interesting, important enabler for that first 45 seconds, for that hiring decision, or for that whatever decision that is, right? आप समझ रहे हो?
So I'm totally with you. And what I add to this now, probably now it's not only English. It's about the overexposure. It's about even I hired someone who has studied in France because I know that okay, she is studying in French in university. That means she will come and bring lots of culture nuances. Will be able to give us lots of insight, intel of the student who has studied in France, right? So what I would suggest, at least that's my opinion, that it used to be English and still English is very, very important. But if you have another second language or you have more exposure or probably you have traveled, I believe we come to this, I know that you love to travel and probably you have a factor of not shying away to travel, moving out.
Work. I love to travel for work.
Now our travel is always work.
I love to travel. Where have you been traveling?
Same. So I tell my wife that, and it's a fact, I love travel, I hate travel, but I'm not someone who, I'm now okay with travel. Mostly work travel.
Right.
Traveling with family and kids is not easy. At least that's what I found. But coming back to the same
English
point,
point.
English, and so where we're coming in, at least.
Just something I think Saurabh आप जो कह रहे हो कि see English becomes a foundational thing. उसके ऊपर whatever you want to add you can add. But to say कि I mean, all respect to Hindi or Urdu, whatever, right? You can say, यार हम उसमें कर लेंगे and we'll compete with stuff because अब तो foundationally सबकी English ठीक ही होगी ना.
और English is a business language.
Business जो भी आप कह ले, fortunately, unfortunately. So I think you need that.
Very good point.
But now if you want to differentiate yourself, yes, a French exposure or a Spanish or even Mandarin, I think you should hire some people who speak Mandarin.
We have people in China, so
Yeah.
you know it was not. In fact, it was very very tough. I didn't find anyone in India speaking Mandarin,
See.
even from JNU.
Right.
You know, there must be translator, but
Yeah.
they can't. There was no
converse.
speaking.
So anything that you can enhance your profile, but foundational cheese of again.
तो इस गिवन हो गया कि आपको लैपटॉप तो चलाना आना ही चाहिए.
हाँ.
If you need to work, you need to know how to work on phone and
and आजकल it's because again it's more democratic today. I mean, Duolingo is an amazing app, right? I met the founder a few weeks back, and if you look at what Luis, he has some great videos also, which if I can recommend, you should look at it. He talks about that, how that enables people movement and enablement of opportunity. So open up the Duolingo app. पहले बचपन में तुम्हें तो याद नहीं होगा, there was a Rapidex English speaking course होती थी, best selling book होती थी.
मेरे बचपन सेम ही है.
Same ही, sorry. So UP में Rapidex book होती थी and it used to be big seller. So instead of Rapidex now, you can just open your phone. Thanks to again India Telecom Revolution, data is very free. Go do Duolingo every day. English सीखना, French सीखना. But again अगर आपका वही drive की जो मैं बात कह रहा हूँ, drive नहीं है, तो it's easy to say मेरे पास opportunity नहीं थी, ये नहीं थी, मैं सीख नहीं पाया. आजकल तो बहुत, I shouldn't say आसान है, but it's much more accessible today. You don't have to go to St. Joseph's or I don't know whether you went to St. Mary's. Meerut. See, I guessed it. I have friends from there.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go there to learn decent English. Plus आप Netflix देख लो आपको बोलना भी आ जाएगा. जैसे हम जरा accent में बोल रहा हूँ मैं जरा से.
आप कनाडा में रह रहे हो. Coming back to your next phase. So 2008 you studied in Rutgers, New Jersey. 2003 to 5. Then
post that
you did Rutgers, you studied in New Jersey, you know, and that was 2005. Now we are in 2025. So in last 20 years, you know, what happened? You know, what got you where you are in education, in EdTech?
I think तूने पहले बहुत अच्छी बात बोली थी कि कोई set path नहीं होता है. तो I think I tried a bunch of things to get into doing stuff. So so after 2005, I worked in New York for this investment bank called Goldman Sachs in technology. Again, really passionate about technology even then. And then, but over time, I think because I got a lot of interesting exposure to business, तो मैंने कहा यार कि अरे MBA करना चाहिए, whatever. So I had two options. I applied to some schools in US, didn't get through. I had also applied to ISB because again going back, I researched. I had two batchmates who'd gone on to ISB before, had a good thing to say, and at that time, like India Shining was campaign, all those things were running. I said, okay, let's go to India. Great opportunity anyway. So and I was not very wedded कि मुझे US में रहना है, get my green card and stuff. I said I like two different things. So I applied to ISB. Fortunately, I got through, and then I moved back to India in 2008. Oh, for that 1 year MBA.
This way I don't know. Okay, 2008.
So again, ISB is a fantastic experience. It wasn't expensive as it is now, so don't think I'm very rich. Again, it's a private institute. आपने बहुत अच्छा point बोला. Demand supply. Private institute charge what people are willing to pay. Of course, I have some opinions on that, but that's okay. But the best part of ISB was obviously it's a very cringe course. But again, the network or the people I worked studied with were amazing. Obviously, think most of my good friends are actually now from ISB. All doing different stuff, entrepreneurship, business, consulting, whatever. So that was a really good experience there. So yeah, I'll recommend ISBs to those who are watching if you can afford it.
But they have finances, no? Or do you think taking a 40 lakhs loan is worth?
Sure.
It's one of the best. As per me, it's one of the best investments.
My time पे 15 lakh की होती थी fee. I got a little bit of scholarship there also, so I think it was still affordable that time. But I would say if you're a student for any course that you're taking, look at the average salary and the employment rate. If you think your loan can be covered through, I don't know, 3 or 4 years of employment, and you think you can be in that 80 or 90% people who are getting employed in that salary band, make the math and do it. Always be cognizant, right? Because especially if you don't have a lot of financial backing, at the end it's a risk.
So, you know, this is a very personal discussion, and, you know, I mean, I'm open to have it online or cut it, but personally, I believe doing MBA, taking an education loan versus why don't we start a startup, put 50 lakhs and have 2-3 years of learning, and that will be real on the ground learning, you know, unshielded, you know, you will, as a founder, you will not shy away to reach out. आप जो भी हमें online marketing courses, portal पढ़ाता है, वो सब आप खुद ही सीख लेते हो. ग्रूमिंग चाहिए होती है, देन आपको कॉन्सेप्ट समझ आ जाए, बट कॉन्सेप्ट की इम्प्लीकेशन या
I agree.
वो
I agree. MBA and
structured learning हो
I
जाती
agree.
है.
MBA is not about the content. I think content आप कहीं भी पढ़ लो. ये बात तो आपकी सही है. I think it's the experience and the environment and the network. I think becomes important.
So this is where I want to drive. So you studied from ISB and that to 8189,
Right.
and I know the batchmates and
Right.
during those 4-5 years. Two questions again. One, how important is to have a network access? Second, let's say some kid at 20-25 wants to study in an institute which probably has not become ISB or IIT
Right.
now. Like there are lots of new age
Sure.
schools coming, MU, TETA, lots of such
Right.
startup schools, Massa and all that. What did you see that ISB us time pe after, and you already have lots on stake coming back from VS,
Right.
already studied in Rutgers and IIT, and then opting for ISB, which was probably not that big brand that point in time.
Right.
So why did you find out or figure out, or what were those signals you got that okay, it will be a good addition to your life education investments?
I think again timing is also there, right? At that time, I mean, not as much today, right? You need to get an MBA degree to again go into business and stuff like that. That's probably not true as much today. You can go to masters and get into business. Who cares, right? Do product management, get into business, right? That's another part today. आपने बहुत अच्छा सवाल पूछा कि is it okay to do
MBA or a startup, investment into education or investment into your dream? At least you want to give it a shot.
वो पहली बात हो गई, but the advantage of doing again, my opinion and different from yours is that again MBA gives you that backup. So God forbid, I think 99 out of 100 startups will probably fail. So at least it gives you a good backup. Plus with the startup experience, you're golden. You can go anywhere. Potential struggle or your downside is reduced. But if you have a great idea, again, great execution, drive, focus, 100% do a startup. Don't worry about an MBA. But it's just that again, people have different risk appetite. I have a lower risk appetite, for example, right? Plus, I didn't have any good ideas. I don't have good ideas even today. So I'm a good executor, manager, but I'm not an entrepreneur like you for a reason. The second point आपने बहुत अच्छा बोला. I always think that it's always good to get a good brand school. Even if you have to do chemical engineering or civil engineering, again, nothing wrong in any of those things. But it's not computer science, but it is okay because one is that brand makes all the, I shouldn't say all, but significant difference in your network in terms of, again, that 45-second perception.
The people you perceive, the moment you say I'm from IIT, people don't ask which course. People like which batch.
Which batch.
Nailed it. Totally.
Right. And again, unfortunate, I'll say it's unfortunate. Just look at the funding done by your top VCs in India. How many of them were for IIT founders versus non-IIT? Non-IIT, NIT, all those great schools, RECs, up to NIT, okay? All of them will be there. But the proportion of IIT is not that they're more brilliant. I will argue they're not. They just got a competitive exam because of privilege. They got a better rank, went to IIT. Better timing also. Because again, network and investment chala gaya. Bhai,
I'm a product of that, So I'm not from IIT. My Mayank is also not from IIT, IIMs and all that. We are a product of, from 2013 till 2018, there was an era when from IIT, IIMs, business plan, done.
Which is because of Sachin and Benny in Flipkart.
And also there was a network, again, see, nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong with that.
If in movie we say nepotism, it's not nepotism. It's about probably I know you better than another. I would like to take a bet on you than that outsider which I don't know.
Sure. I would still call it nepotism in the movies. Again, different topic. But आपने point सही बोला. It's like, I'm familiar with your game. I'm familiar with your environment.
I will trust you because I have seen your pattern.
And I know तेरा downside भी तेरा काफी है. तेरा reputation है.
Right.
So that bias inherent, again, that 45-second I'm telling you is very, very important. So I will always suggest to someone to, not that it matters in terms of content or course or thing, but network and signaling. I think it's better to do a course, less optimal course versus a very top course. And that's why you see people go to IIT Kanpur or Kharagpur or Bombay. They'll take, that's always higher ranked versus a computer science at even Roorkee.
Very interesting.
Mostly. People will say, okay, because it's IIT Bombay. IIT Bombay has a history of entrepreneurship. Even before
it's a
IIT
network.
Delhi.
It's a network
environment.
Totally.
So that's very important, I feel.
Nice.
Same thing with ISB.
What's your 45-second impression of me?
45-second of what?
Impression of me.
Again, I'm older and wiser, so I don't get that biased. But I think my 46, again, I like people who have no filters and are real. Because at this point in time, I do understand to a large extent how much of this person has the content or the idea and stuff. So obviously, And I have, and again, being on the other side, I have a lot of appreciation for entrepreneurs. So I think in that sense, I think
आप wise and mature हो गए इसलिए ना आप बहुत place save कर रहे हो. And now your name is safe, so it's okay. But I really want, probably we take off camera, but that 45 second. But now आप सोच के बोलोगे ना तो अच्छा ही बोलोगे. Let's move to next. Then so 2005 till 2008, you studied and then you got into Goldman Sachs. That was the time.
Goldman Sachs, huh?
And you specifically talk about technology,
Perfect.
consulting.
Right.
What is that kida or what is that exposure, or like was it your pseudo interest because everyone were talking technology, or you were really passionate about it?
No, I was really passionate about it. Again,
right from day one.
Self motivated. मैं chemical engineering से मैं अच्छी खासी job लग गई मेरी Sapient में. उस टाइम 5 लाख रुपए मिलते थे. One of the highest packages. I could have stayed, and a lot of people did stay in TCS, Infosys, and they've done really well.
Yes.
But unfortunately, that lifelong learner, तुमने अच्छी बात बोली, एक तो वो था कि यार नया सीखना चाहिए. And two is that I really want to understand comp science at its core. So I said, no, I'll do it. And then I worked in tech. I did that too. Again, it's just like personal note as well, right? Again, a lot of sometimes these decisions also made in terms of environment, right? I think so sometimes how your colleagues are or your bosses are, right? Most of the time, that also influences you, how much interest do you continue to thrive, or you kind of lose interest, right? So without getting into detail, so I like tech. I did really good stuff there. Again, interesting anecdote. I did not realize उस time Goldman Sachs का $2 billion का होता था investment on technology. इतना तो उस time पे Infosys, Wipro, I don't think revenue भी होता था. So they were so sharp in terms of what they want to do in technology, which was great. But then again, over time, as I said, जरा सा मुझे भी क्योंकि I did dramatics at Roorkee, तो जरा समझ रहा था नहीं जरा अभी like you have to be front and center. So मैं कहा business side is the front and ठीक है tech पे ठीक है यार मुझे जरा सा सामने जाके influence करना है. So that sense, so a little bit of that कि नहीं यार चलो front end पे जाके देखते हैं जरा drive करते हैं business को. So that one, and again, I don't regret either ways. Your path is your path, right? And whether you do well or not, you should follow, subject to your downside risk management. Do what you feel like doing.
I guess I'm reading your mind. So you mentioned that there's no regrets, but I just wrote it here that what are your regrets, because you've been taking risks, and you are following your interest, passion,
Sure.
You're a risk taker,
Right.
And also, as you mentioned, you've been into dramatic, so you want to be center stage, right? So first question again, I'm sure there must be some regrets, if there is any. Second, why don't you took a plunge to be an entrepreneur, especially after being around with lots of entrepreneurs, business people?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think second part में पहला answer करूँगा. I think at least ever since I moved, I'll say in Snapdeal, I give a lot of credit to that, right? I started doing something in theoretical innovation, then I moved into category management. So 10 years, I think I've been doing sales or business, whatever, right? I think that gave me a lot of freedom, exposure to do business, right? And do my own thing, right? I had an amazing team, I think. Shout out to the people I worked with Snapdeal. Like Raghu Reddy, who was then Xiaomi CBO and now doing his own amazing stuff. A lot of my team members are doing really good. So I learned a lot from them. Then when I joined LG Electronics, they wanted to establish e-commerce channel. So again, in their constraint of a Korean company, do what you need to do. And then when I met Ameti, Martin, these guys at ApplyBoard, again, that started off doing well, but then how do I establish and grow South Asia, right? How I grew the team from, let's say, 15 people to over 200. So again, all of these were, I would say, semi-entrepreneur efforts anyways, right? So in that sense, I probably got that bit of satisfaction of doing my things. I had some great leaders like Meti today in terms of like, do your own thing, figure it out. So itna mujhe wo jo keeda hai, itna it didn't bite. But obviously, over time, I had the greatest respect for entrepreneurs in terms of the risk and the clarity that they do. And of course, the funds that they raise.
You're an entrepreneur only. In fact, this is for all the leaders, including myself, right? In fact, lots of time, when chips are down and when like I'm not able to give time to family or my health and whatever, I'm like, why I'm running so much? Why I'm trying to be hero? Why don't I just join a startup which is heavily funded?
True.
And I run my show because there are lots of
such roles
advantages, that at least मुझे पैसा लाने की चिंता नहीं है.
बिल्कुल.
या फिर probably I know I don't want to be everywhere and be part of everything, but I'm like doing this, right?
Yeah.
And then of course, there are times when I'm like, नहीं यार सब कुछ खुद करना है. I'm getting
Plus, I
like
can't
this
imagine
and
the
that.
responsibility, right, to make payroll every month. I think so many people, amazing people, I'm sure, working on this floor. And I think that's a lot of responsibility. Some people have the appetite, like you, for example. I probably can't. So to me, again,
Or appetite, or probably you were chosen one. I always say I'm a chosen one. Not best to the schools, not best to the mind. I mean it. No, I'm not trying to be humble or this and that. I mean it, right? And not that we have like cracked. We are still a indie con.
Right.
Or though we are profitable, but
right.
We still are not heavily venture back. But enjoying this journey and that satisfaction when we get that message from a partner or from a student or parent,
yes. Absolutely.
Genuinely that is, and then when people used to say on camera all this, and I'm like bullshit है, फालतू की बात है, but I guess वो एक मैसेज ना एक हफ्ता आपको ऐसे काम करवा देता है. नहीं यार, it's worth it, right? But coming back to it, in fact, I'm still 40, and I always say that the way you've been taking risk and covering it up, given a chance, probably 10 years, I won't mind playing a second fiddle because it's got in all advantages to it. Probably more perks and more time to family, or probably to yourself. What are your regrets, if any?
I shouldn't say regret, but again,
if you had a time machine to go back and like 20 years, what do you would I do?
I mean, it's a good point. I think another path, right? I mean, think of a parallel universe, right? So multiverse ab ho gaya, bada popular. But I would have probably continued tech and gone to product. There was nothing called product management in 2008-9,
right?
Because again, financial crisis came, interest rate became zero. People said, "Arey, plus mobile tech thing." Suddenly, MBAs with technology background became product managers, right? And then obviously that's a very nice and interesting path today. So maybe in another path I would become a more tech-heavy business wala thing. Maybe that's one way I could have done differently. But then, I mean, if you think about what if, right? That's one. Second is, I would pay a little bit more attention. I like playing sports. I think one of my regrets is I should do more of it, as my friends constantly remind me when I gain weight. So I think I could have spent the last 4-5 years a little bit more on continue to play more sports, take care of, I don't want to say health, but I like to be fit. I don't like going to the gym. I like
stamina आना चाहिए.
Yeah, I like to do that stuff, right?
अगर 20 का मैच खेलो तो पूरा खेलना है.
पूरा खेलना, exactly. So I think I should have done more of that. Probably the third thing is our writing. Actually, I haven't been very diligent on writing. So I'm a co-founder of a company called The Morning Context. Ashish, Harveen, Pradeep, these guys obviously are the main founders. So we basically write long-form business journal articles every day.
Oh.
So Ashish, I knew from his Ken days, kindly asked me to be one of the co-founders. So I used to write very frequently for on e-commerce because I think I'm an expert on e-commerce, at least theoretically. So that's my regret. I should have spent a little bit more time on these personal pursuits, right, which I'm really passionate about.
Amazing.
And I still have aspiration of being. If you ask me what is my life aspiration, it is to write one good play or a book.
आते इस पे इससे पहले वापस जाते हैं.
ये interesting topic है.
इस पे आएंगे बस इससे पहले वापस जाएंगे. You're not mentioning about your family, your personal life. Are you you're a personal guy? You don't like talking about your family, or you would like to tell them more about your family?
No, not that personal. I'm very social and gregarious. I think I probably have one of the largest network of friends and etc. I think across the board. So, and I like people. I like friends. I like hanging out with people. So, like with you today.
No, I agree, and I guess that's also something to do with your IIT, ISB, and also you understand the power of network and genuine network.
I disagree on that.
The power of genuine network or the networking.
I like people actually. I always trust people by default. I like people by default. In fact. After Roorkee, again, we came from a different time. We didn't have Instagram, Facebook. So we actually, I knew all my 3350 batchmates by name, where they are from. I knew all my seniors. Juniors definitely knew me. हमारे ये नहीं होता था अरे तू मेरे बैच का है मेरे बैच का है. I never met you because our hostels were also by year. So I was actually very. So again, one of my depressing episodes after Roorkee was that, yaar, main tere se touch mein hu, you haven't called me and you didn't, you know what I'm saying? And then obviously over time I understand people got busy, but I've always been a very social person.
What was your family life?
No, I have 3 young daughters, Myra, Sana and Zoya. And, and Samia obviously is my wife who's holding fort while I'm traveling to your point. So yeah, I mean, the kids are good. I think that's one of the reasons that I like Canada. One of the reasons we chose to move there is that I think it's really good for kids and families. It's fairly safe. very good public education, जो हम argue कर चुके हैं. I hate the private concept here that, and again, I don't mean any bad thing to say, but again, I think equitable society starts from equal access to healthcare and education. And if people, and that's why Canada is a very mostly equitable society, because at least the students all go to the same school. ये नहीं कि मेरा I have, and of course private school शुरू कर दी है देसियों ने and other people. So again, it's a nice thing. I love taking the kids out to parks. Summers are brilliant in Canada. I'm not much of a winter person over there, but so it's really good.
I feel I'm talking to my soul brother. Same. Sports. मुझे धूप चाहिए, मुझे दोस्त चाहिए, मुझे काम करना है, मुझे अच्छा काम करना है, मुझे सीखना है. And end of the day, I want to, when I sit, I need to feel happy with people around which are same vibes. Same, I mean, very similar. Coming back. And also, lots of respect and kudos to your wife, because I have one daughter. And I know how Shararati, full of energy that one daughter is. So she's managing 3, and that too in a foreign land.
Foreign country,
Why did you move to Canada? And again, how did you meet Meti and Martin and decide to be part of ApplyBoard?
So again, Sami actually was a Canadian citizen. She grew up, obviously, she's Indian, but grew up in Middle East. So after, obviously, we got married, she moved to Delhi. But when we had Myra in 2014, again, very good public healthcare, so she chose to have Myra in Canada, right? If you want to know how much did they charge us for the whole thing, $0, right? Again, they give emphasis on healthcare and education very, very well. Like, great country. So anyways, at that time, I said, okay, let me go back to North America. I think obviously India is great, but I said, I think eventually for the kids, eventually they have to, IIT to crack karne nahi wale hamare bacche. So might as well be there where they study in that environment, and then it's easier for them to go to whatever in North America, right? So I moved in 2018 after LG, and I was it's again at a little bit senior position or a bit later in life. It's obviously tough to go to kind of a new country, even with North American experience. Plus, again, I'm not a technology guy anymore, right? I'm a business guy, so it's always hard to find the right role and fit. But again, self-driven, not that I'm very self-driven, but in that case, I did a lot of networking, met a lot of people. चप्पल घिसने वाले काम होते हैं ना, go and say, okay, what is there, what's not happening. So it took me a good 5-6 months, but I went to some random fair of University of Toronto, and I met someone from ApplyBoard, and I said, it's an interesting model, and they said, we're doing study abroad and stuff. And by that time, I had no idea that this industry existed. Study abroad. I was an international student myself. मुझे खुद कभी idea था. There's a massive industry which is called study abroad. So anyways, I met Meti in our Kitchener-Waterloo office. And I think we really hit it off. I met Martin and Marcy as well, the co-founders. And then I thought, again, the thing that Snapdeal or LG gave me is that I got a very good sense of e-commerce. So I said, this is, okay, I understand. We're a B2B platform. There is demand from students or agents, and there is supply in terms of American or US Canadian schools at that time, right? And we're in the middle. So you have to match demand with supply, and you have some technology, whatever, to do it. And so my work was on the demand side, which is creating a B2B network, getting B2B2C, right? So I'm like, this is fair. And this was, again, the role was thankfully for South Asia. I said, I know this stuff. So thankfully, again, serendipity, luck and timing, I think. So I obviously got an offer and happy to join.
But that was a huge risk, because now you're married, you have kids, right? You're in a foreign land, right? You're done with your undergrad, postgrad, MBA, 10 साल experience हो गया. So there were lots on stake. Why ApplyBoard at that point in time?
I think one is obviously they gave me an offer, but I think I think
you mean good salary?
Okay. I shouldn't comment either. Meti might be watching, but I'll give a lot of credit to Meti. I think actually I did have some thoughts around it, but Meti was very clear, generous in terms of. So I think that founder vibe is very important. So I think at that, even now, by that time I could figure out, is this guy an asshole, or is a genuine guy, is really passionate about something. So that, and again, Meti and these guys were really clear about access to education, right? And I know it's a buzzword now, and that's a time ho gaya about that, but they were all international students themselves. I was an international student myself. They came from Iran. A lot of their colleagues at that time, less than 200 people were international students, and they really believed in this, that decent technology, that a great business plan, had raised some amount of money. So of course there was risk around it, but I really, again, it was a good fit in terms of role. It was a good fit in terms of the founder, people, and the path that they're willing to take. And again, historically, if you look back at my career on LinkedIn, I've never worked more than 3 years in a company. There's a reason I've stuck around for 5.5 years. Because either I get bored or some vibe thing doesn't fit and say, "Tika, let me try something else." But again, we are still very, very, very passionate about this industry, working with some great partners, hopefully like University Living, right? Because build that whole ecosystem. And it's a nice market, which is enabling students to go abroad.
Very interesting, very interesting. You mentioned founder vibes.
Yeah.
And being a founder, I'm fortunate to get best of people around. It's very tough on founders and also on leaders,
right.
Because, we've been blessed and fortunate, or probably we took some race, it worked, and we become a founder.
Right.
That doesn't mean founders are the smartest or they are the most hardworking, or
I think they're the most hardworking. I'll give them that.
Hardworking?
Yeah, I will give you that.
By choice or by design? I guess by design.
By design, whatever you want.
Dono hi.
But I think it's a chicken and egg. If you're not hardworking, you cannot be a founder. If you're a founder, you have to be hardworking. Because again, I realized this when I started doing sales at a Snapdeal. I was heading electronics. Raghu was heading mobile. We were the top 2 categories. I couldn't come back and say, yeah, ठीक है, इस हफ्ते मेरा number GMV का नहीं हो पाएगा, चलो someone else will make it up for it. Then you get into that hook that नहीं, if you don't do it, no one else can make it up, and then you are in trouble, right? So I think that mindset I learned at that time, and even now, if I don't make up the numbers, there's no backup, कोई और आके miraculously कर लेगा. So same thing. So I do it obviously at a GM or a VP level. You do it at a founder level. Okay? If you don't make your numbers this month or this day, it will not come back. So I think you have to work hard. You have to be very focused, and you have to be driven. And I shouldn't say unfortunate, but at times it is very stressful for you and the people around you. But that's the responsibility.
That's what we have signed up.
That's what you signed up for.
Especially the leaders, the management, and the founders. Even anyone who have started, who have worked in or who have joined startup for quick growth or probably more exposure learning. Then don't talk about. I'm on camera. I'm saying, don't talk about work-life balance. Don't talk about 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours. It's about just go in and give it all. That's my philosophy. Yeah. But when I'm running a 300 plus 400 people team globally and in different countries, we need to be easy. And now I've learned, because earlier I used to expect, यार मैं 20 घंटे काम करूँ भाई तू भी
क्या कर रहा है?
नहीं यार, he had not signed up to be a founder. He had signed up to have a good work-life balance, and we need to be like that.
Yeah, and good founders appreciate it. And I don't want to name founders on camera here in India who are notorious, very successful but notorious for bad culture. So I think आपने बहुत अच्छी बात बोली.
But वो bad culture ने growth तो दी ना. तो इस चक्कर में उसकी I don't know who you're talking, but उस चक्कर में
I'll tell you.
नहीं, I know. I know who we are talking, but उस कल्चर के चक्कर में उनकी वो यूनिकॉर्न बने, वो मल्टी यूनिकॉर्न बने. And I give you an example why I'm talking this.
I think long term, if fair enough, आपने सब बात है, but again long term, if you look at your Fortune 500, please find me 5 companies which have terrible culture and terrible founders.
Agree.
Satya Nadella will not talk. He might be whatever, but that. I learned it late, and I learned it from Methi, and I will give him a lot of credit for that. That I think that culture aspect is very important. I understand the hustle, I understand the thing, but तुमने खुद अच्छी बात बोली कि ठीक है, let's drive that culture, but to become harsh beyond
don't judge. Respect their choices
be tough, love whatever. But I think if any founder or any employee is looking at it, work hard, do hard. Yes, sometimes conflict happen. But culture is very important. I do think long term that's the marker of success of a company.
I agree. It's so
exceptions are there.
And then वो भी ना बहुत कम है, because वो 2, 3, 4, 5 लगता है wow they are cracking it. But वो 6, 7, 8 साल में आता है, अरे सब कुछ ही गलत था.
Leaders की revolving door होती है. Look at the leaders. You'll see the constant churn. वो founder लगे यार, मैं 20 घंटे काम कर रहा हूँ. कर लो भाई काम. You have $1 billion to be made, so you'll work hard. Good for you. But to be good point. And to expect employees to work hard, it's not wrong. But to do it in a fair and respectful manner is very important. And again, I'm guilty of that also as a leader. But we should be cognizant that this is not the consistent right approach.
I would say on these things, the communication is very important.
Sure, the comms.
Have a heart-to-heart dialogue that, see, I work 20 hours.
Right.
I'm not expecting to do 20 hours.
Right.
But this is what we can do in this lifetime, which we can do now. Probably 10 साल बाद energy नहीं होगी, and then regret होगा, right? And there's a learning curve. Like जब मैं 20 साल में था, मैं 15, 16, 18 घंटे मतलब नेचुरली काम कर सकता हूँ ना. फैमिली नहीं है, शादी नहीं, बच्चे नहीं. बट इफ यू आर एट 40, 45, you need to have balance it out. You need to push for longevity.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm 20, I can still abuse my body, if I can say that, you know, and still get away with it. So it's also that communication, expectation setting, and have a fair discussion that, okay, I'm at 25, I want to talk about work-life balance, and I'm here to do this much, and I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the perks and this growth I'm getting. Don't compare with someone who's probably not sleeping on those targets are not getting done. So that comparison should be fair, and accordingly the expectation should be built up. Over to you. Sorry about that. I'm very passionate about few things, but
I'll wrap this up with a nice story. I saw it on a video, and I think it's you might have seen that as well. But I think it's instructive about leadership, right? So again, here's the story, right? So there are two explorers. This is the late 18th, early 19th, late 19th, early 20th century. People exploring the Antarctica Arctic Circle, right? There are two types of explorer. One explorer, might have seen that video, but this is an interesting story.
Yeah.
One explorer has done all the big four, went to Arctic Circle, reached Antarctica, found the Northeast Passage, found the Northwest Passage. The other explorer, let's call it Explorer B, has failed in 3 of his 4 expeditions, has had terrible luck or whatever, including death of some of his, obviously, crew. And these are explorers going on ship, right? This is, if I ask you a question, which is the leader that is more not in news, but in terms of was celebrated or written books about, will you say was the one who did 4 successful ones or one who was unsuccessful?
Unsuccessful.
Why?
See, ek to, that person is optimizing the biggest fortune. Second, he have stories to share, and he have
his stories.
See, as human beings, we would love to talk about failures. One,
yeah,
and second, we would love to talk about that one big outcome. Because yellow journalism sells, negativity sells. That's where we get our dopamine.
Yeah, or we see that like conflict sells, right? So basically, the one who was successful was the Norwegian one, Roald Amundsen. And the one who obviously spectacularly failed was Ernest Shackleton, right? Who was Anglo-Irish, I think. And Shackleton is, if you see tons of books around. In fact, I have a book of him on one of his voyages, which I still have to read. But again, so when you go back to leaders and we say, look at this leader and he's so working hard and so passionate, this. But we at the same time, because that's a popular culture, tells us that this is a great leader. But however, they are entrepreneurs or leaders who are working quietly behind the scenes, not that much on LinkedIn or whatever, not piping their own horn, but have made multi-billion-dollar businesses and technology only, or even whatever. And we don't talk about those leaders because this is a popular imagination. So I think this is true, again, throughout human history and human psychology. So I think it's very indicative for us to, okay, sure, Ernest Shackleton or those founders who are whatever, sure, they have some good things, but the person who has planned everything and who did everything to the T was super successful. I think those are probably our right inspiration in terms of their leadership things, which we should be at least recognize, if not completely.
I agree.
Right? So I think we make that problem mistake. Yaar, jo cheek raha hai, kar raha hai, ya kood raha hai, phaan raha hai, that's a great entrepreneur.
I got your cue. Because you're a friend, and I know where you're hinting, and I partially agree.
Yeah.
Because yes, probably I'm super active on LinkedIn. I'm super active on.
I'm not talking
social,
about you.
And I'm fine.
I'm referring to culture from a culture point of view.
Yeah, and I'm where I'm coming from,
right.
Because I did a podcast with a very popular influencer who probably reached 1 million in 3 months, and he's an entrepreneur. So I was talking, and the theme was, and probably we can go back and check that that podcast with Nitin. Theme was, do all entrepreneurs needs to be content creator, and will all content creator will be influencers?
Sure.
Right? And I come from a background who couldn't able to speak English, leave about writing all those LinkedIn,
right.
And of course I have a great team to support me. मेरा belief है कि जंगल में मोर नाचा किसने देखा, due to which you probably shy away or get not able to attract the right talent, right capital, and also create narratives, because why only media should be talking good or bad thing about you?
Yeah.
You have all the social media. Yeah. Be genuine, be authentic, and then let everyone talk about it. It's fine till the time you are able to be you or yourself and be consistent. So that's my way of thinking. But I have Mayank, who I believe is very similar to you. He's the executioner. Because Mayank is there, I have a luxury to do a podcast on a weekday. Because Mayank and my management team, Manoj and AB is there, due to which probably I can have a liberty to network and travel, right? So that's again very individual. But coming back to you, you talk about Canada. Why did you choose Canada at 2018? Because your wife was there.
Yeah.
And it. But beyond that, you would have gone to US.
Yeah, no, I've been going.
Why Canada?
I've been going to Canada since 2003 because I had family there and stuff. So I always liked the place. I didn't get enough snow in New Jersey, so I thought, let's go to Canada. But jokes apart, I think US is a great country. I think most of the people prefer the US. I think
your family was there. You were more
not necessarily
comfortable, used to it.
I mean, it's a personal preference. I found US to be a little bit. I don't want to say depressing, but it's a very different vibe.
It's a bit rough.
It's a bit rough and it's very individualistic. While at least in Canada, I feel it's more communal. In terms of community, in terms of not just desis over there, just that it's a very different environment.
It's very cosmopolitan.
It's a more cosmopolitan.
Yet it's not very,
The only thing that was obviously keeping me going to Canada was obviously weren't as many people which I know of, friends or whatever, who are there. But that has obviously changed in the recent past. I have a lot of friends and a circle over there. So, I mean, if you want to talk about safety, security versus the US, I think it's always safer. I don't want to say socialist at heart. My friends will make fun of me, but I like the equitable society.
One, but then let's leave this to another episode.
But I like the point of that again. Equitable society, free healthcare, free education, good quality stuff. High taxation, but that's okay. You get something out of your tax, right? And so I like Canada, and I said okay. I could see myself staying there.
And why ApplyBoard is front runner or pioneer of Canada, along with few other platforms or few other setups also previously, but why it was Canada your playground for ApplyBoard?
Yeah. So same thing.
Because you guys are like
we work with like
you have created you have made Canada popular. It used to be popular, but you have taken to next level as ApplyBoard.
So the same as like why university living has more Indian students versus Chinese, right? It's because when your home country becomes the more important. And again, Methi, Martin, Masi all studied in Canada. And again, we started off, obviously, our first school, I believe, was Conestoga College, where they were alumni of. We got some good support from them. Then we added more and more universities and colleges in Canada. So I think we did a great job.
So all three studied from the same college?
No, I think Martin went to University of Waterloo, Masi and Methi went to Conestoga.
Because I was thinking ऐसा होता है कि एक बड़ा भाई पढ़ता है तो discount मिलता है ऐसा कुछ
नहीं discount नहीं था. So I think Martin was the eldest who went to Waterloo first. So again I think obviously we did a really good job of obviously putting that up, that whole platform that we built. Again, we made it very democratic. So any nationality can apply through a single thing, make it very clear. We made it very transparent, right? I mean, we should take credit for that, right? Earlier, people used to, now people call हमने portal बना लिया है. Before ApplyBoard came in, the industry was, I'll email you, Saurabh, please you check my application, you put it somewhere, and then maybe after 2-3 weeks, so you'll tell me कि admission आया कि नहीं आया. We started with a tech first approach. I say, here's the thing. You can exactly see if you're qualified, apply, you can see the status, and you can talk to the back-end operations, and you'll know when the offer comes, and then go do whatever you need to do. So that whole process, I think we democratized, and now it's, I think, taken for granted in this industry to a large extent. Of course, we learned from obviously some large giants who came before us, like KC, Okare, Mosaic, and these folks, right? I think, but again, we charted our own course, and that's how we work. So yes, we started very heavily in Canada, but again, we're very strong in UK, US. We have Ireland, Australia as well, and now we recently joined Germany. But again, our insight was also very. One thing I learned a little bit from Methi and these guys was that, which I think is a thing for entrepreneur, which I actually like about university living, is that you should always be focused on your core business to begin with. Unfortunately, in my experience, a lot of Indian entrepreneurs कहते हैं मैं ये कर लिया, अरे अब मैं ये भी कर लूँ, अब मैं तीसरी चीज कर लूँ, वहाँ पैसा हो रहा है.
Unfortunately, fundraise के लिए करना पड़ता है, मुझे ऐसा लगता है.
Maybe the VCs are not very mature here for whatever, or maybe the market depth is not here.
They need a new animal
story.
Yeah, new thing to sell to get.
So we always focus on we'll get Canada work. We'll then aram, because again we are not going anywhere. We are believing in what we are doing. So we were very focused, and we continue to. We have one business, which is our B2B. Of course, I look at value-added solutions, which is okay. How can we enable? But we are always and still after 10 years focused on platform recruitment of these countries, right? We didn't say I can start a business, or someone can start a business tomorrow and get 10 different countries, including. But who cares, right? But we were very focused on making these countries accessible and scalable as well.
We want to talk about quickly in like next 2 minutes about how ApplyBoard became ApplyBoard.
Sure.
It wasn't that there were no players before.
Right.
Wasn't that now there are no players.
No players,
Probably what worked for ApplyBoard. More like I want more nuances. I want those milestones. I want those that getting a exclusivity with a particular university.
That's a good point, right? I think without giving away our trade secrets, but I think some of them are well known, and I think Methi and Martin would have talked about it before as well. I think before we look at the strategy, I think all that stuff, but I think the few things are very important. I think the founder clarity is very important, that this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. Two, a great team is essential, right? I mean, I'll count myself over there as well, because you need strong people to go out and execute that vision, right? And likewise for me, I think I found really great people right down to the account manager level, do a fantastic job on a daily basis, right? And third, I think that culture we talked about, I think is important, that you're all thinking about the same thing. Of course, it's at the end, it's a job for most of us, and including me, right? But that culture that we're trying to get something that becomes very, very important. So that I think is at the foundation level is very important. Now in terms of strategy, I think we got, again, some of it is serendipity. We got a few things right. Methi was very clear that yes, there were people before us, but we will go deep in certain schools where we had some kind of a special partnership, and then we really built those partnerships very well in markets. Number two was that we will always have a tech-first approach, which is that everything we will not take it over email. We will not take an application over email. It has to be through this platform, content, publish, do search, do whatever you need to take, right? Commissions will only be through this process. We will not do shortcuts. You have to be KYC to be part of ApplyBoard, right? Yeah. So those foundational norms of partnerships were very important. And the third thing is, I think I will say luck. I think a lot of any entrepreneur or startup is luck. I will obviously Canada grew at the right time.
We were there at the right time.
We were there at the right time, and of course we executed really, really well. So I think that gave us a big leg up. And so I think bit of strategy, bit of clarity, and a lot of execution, I would say.
You mentioned luck, and then you mentioned execution. कब पता चलता है, कैसे लगता है कि हम सही एग्जीक्यूट कर रहे हैं? Because अभी तो if you see on the hindsight, everything connecting.
True.
But how do you figure out that we are doing right currently last 2-3 months?
I think one is qualitative, one is quantitative. I think quantitative is what we did was we quickly built up interesting metrics to look at, right? I think basic metrics, which again in hindsight might be simple, but we say how many partners worked with us this month? What was the average number of applications we gave? So I think those basic metrics start thinking, are you trending the right way? So then when instead of saying we'll do X thousand number this year, then you can go back and build, okay, how many partners I need to make them active, right? Which means how many partners I need to put account managers for, right? So basic segmentation, जो आपने बोला ना MBA में हम सीखते हैं. I think then you see, okay, this is how you do go to market. So I think you see quantitative. The second thing is qualitatively, right? When you, again, these are people businesses, right? B2B businesses. So you have when you go out to the market and when you talk to things, are you being there for your customer or not? And are you getting the right interest back from the customers? Customers are also, again, I don't say opportunistic, but they have to do what's best for the students, right? So they will say, if you're not doing a good job, they will tell you. So are you willing to listen to that feedback? Are you getting those good vibes again? Are they willing to trust you? So a bit of both qualitative and quantitative metrics become very important. You cannot go one either way. कि मैं सिर्फ vibes पे या मेरा दोस्त है इससे हो जाएगा या फिर मैं सिर्फ number ही देखूंगा. How he's a small partner for me, so it's not important. No, maybe he's actually a very big partner for you. He's just very small business.
More effective.
Right. So I think it was lot of both, I would say, quant and qualitative stuff.
So you mentioned luck, and you mentioned about Canada, right? And you are a product of Canada now, right?
I'm a product of Allahabad, but I'm in Canada now. Yes.
Valid.
Right.
No, sorry, I take my word back.
Kanpur to be exact.
You're a product of your family.
Right.
What was working for Canada? When you were building it up from probably 2015 till 2022?
23, I would
23?
say. Yeah.
Last 8 years was like different journey altogether.
Right.
And you and few other partners have led the way.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Canada was not a flavor.
Right.
All of a sudden, going to Canada, I have questions, like, is Canada still the best option for international students? How safe is Canada for international students? Are work opportunity and PR are accessible as student expect?
Yeah.
Rather than having a structure.
I'll summarize.
Yeah.
I'll summarize it. I think, see, I think let's look at the facts in India. Let's look at India overall, right? India has what 1.45 billion people now, right? 145 crore, right?
Yeah.
When I went to Roorkee, right, and if you add Roorkee plus IIT JEE at that time, I think the total seats there were 1,800, and I think there were 1,20,000 people giving IIT JEE. Number of seats has gone to what I think 15,000 if I'm not wrong. I mean, even though there are 25 IITs, the people who are giving IIT JEE is like over 10-11 lakhs. So the capacity, going back to our argument over public versus private education, hasn't kept up with the demand. And are you telling me the students who are the top 1 lakh students are not good? I think all of them are, actually all the students are brilliant in their own way. But all the 1 lakh students should be going to good quality education in India, private, public. So same thing in DU. You went to DU. Has the capacity of DU increased massively? No. That's why Ashoka is there now, or whatever. So the point I'm trying to say is that if you look at Indian example, the population, aspiration, the people are much more smarter today, continues to grow, but the capacity hasn't kept up for whatever reason. Let's not argue there today. So which means that students will look to go abroad, right? So when students are looking for seeking a quality education, I'm sure all countries are decent, but I think North America, UK, Australia, these countries continue because of their old history, economic power, continue to be very, very strong. Of course, Malaysia, I think China, all those things are great options as well. So these countries continue to be crucially important, including Canada. So has the interest stopped? No. I think the country has said that okay, no, we need to do a little bit of pause, reassess, because we might be letting not necessarily a lot of people in, but not the right students who might come back and work in terms of what the country needs, right? So, for example, a lot of students, because went to, for example, certain business programs, right? And you only need a certain number of people to do business, right? You need entrepreneurs, but you also need your trade people. You also need healthcare practitioners. You also need STEM, data science analytics as well. So what Canada has said that, okay, we're going to rationalize a little bit better. And because again, you don't want students to come in, 500 million students went at peak. So they're saying, okay, they still are welcoming over 200,000 students, which is one of the largest countries, I think, after the US. So it's not that they're stopping students internationally. They're saying, okay, we want students to be more focused on what they're doing. The school should be equipped with providing, which I think are fantastic, by the way. I can talk about why colleges are amazing in Canada. And then the labor market needs those students. So the students that are not left hanging and then they say, oh, I didn't get a job here. And by the way, this is nothing different from what the US does. US always had an I-20 model, right? US never guaranteed you to have a green card. I got 1 year of OPT, I got a job. Now you get 3 years of OPT, by the way. There's no guarantee of a green card. Yeah. So Canada is just kind of making it explicit that you have no guarantee of a PR, which is okay because, to your point, come back to India or do entrepreneurship. You know what I'm saying? So I think just Canada has made it very clear, and people are a little bit of shocked that, oh, how is this possible? Because earlier it was a flood. Yeah. But it's nothing different from US or Australia is much more stringent. And UK also, to my knowledge, is not guaranteeing any residency. Yeah. What is going in favor of Canada is that if you're good, smart, you get a job, the path to PR, again, I'm not a IRCC, I should say it, so I cannot comment on immigration, but the path to PR is there. The path to citizenship is there, which, to my understanding, personal opinion, is fairly clear versus a lot of countries. I mean, again, I don't want to crap on US, but I know people in US have been stuck on green card queue or citizenship queue for 10, 15, 20 years. Yeah. Good for them and they prefer it, but no one is complaining about the US. They are happy. So I think same thing in Canada. It's actually easier, it's more focused, and so it's not the student demand has gone. Students have got, is that Canada has put a pause, but if students are clear and stuff, Canada is a great country to be in.
So what are the rules of, let's say, and because I'm not an expert, you are, what are the rules of let's say if I'm a student from Punjab or Gujarat or from Delhi or from anywhere, from India, Nigeria, Nepal, how should one approach to study in Canada?
I think first is, again, go to applyboard.com and search for the program. You can log in.
I didn't get money, I wish I would have charged it, there's no implant. But
no, I'm saying again, there are a lot of good things, or ask ChatGPT or whatever, right? And you can say, okay, what are the programs, and then it'll tell you what it is. I think the first step is, again, look at what course you would want to do. You want to go for undergrad, what course you would want to do. You can do bachelor's, you can do 2-year diploma, or you're going for master's or whatever. So I think understand what course you would like to do. Then take a look at any of these platforms or like ApplyBoard, as I mentioned, and look at what course you want to do. And then, as I said, go back to your trusted advisor. Either apply on your own or go to a recruitment partner agent. There's so many good ones around. And say, okay, I've made up a mind. I want to do a STEM course in Canada. I think a 2-year diploma is good because I don't want to spend 4 years in bachelor's, as an example. Tell me which college has the guest course. And then go and apply, right? In terms of requirements are fairly straightforward. They look at a little bit of, in this case, a little bit of maths, some English proficiency. And again, if you work at ApplyBoard, we have a 95% acceptance rate. This is my pitch.
But it's a fact, right?
That's a fact. It's not public.
Yeah.
So we have a 95% acceptance rate once we submit an applicant to the school. So you have a lot of chances of obviously getting through. Of course, there are premium universities.
Do other partners or do other platforms have less acceptance rates?
I mean, I cannot comment on them, but
is there something like this?
I mean, we would say even our visa rate of our students is higher than the market, and we claim it publicly because it's public data. And again, we cannot be.
But what is that? What is the visa rate?
So typically, again, for example, in India to Canada peaked at around 70-odd%. We were always 8, 9, 10% points higher. And the reason for that
80%?
Yeah, the reason for that is actually it's a little bit higher if you look at the 2023 data. We have a blog out. It's 2024 data. The reason it is because we really vet the students. We don't put all the students if they're not qualified. Number 2 is obviously we check for fraud and all of those other things that institutions and our partners care about. And of course, we work with strong recruitment partners who work with ApplyBoard, and they are actually very well versed with Canada, as an example.
Can I ask one tough question? And I always want to clear this. It's a compliment and also a acquisition. Right? I've been hearing that ApplyBoard had given or make even a cigarette vendor, a pan wala, apply to Canada.
As an agent or as a student?
As an agent.
No, I disagree with that. So again, I worked in e-commerce, and again, every single partner that works with ApplyBoard is vetted as KYC'd, right? And every single partner, if it goes beyond a certain segment, has an account manager on the ground who goes, meets them, touches fees, looks at the office, right? So first of all, we don't sign up every partner. We actually have.
How many partners we have?
Officially, globally, we have 10,000 plus partners. Again, we operate in multiple countries. Again, why we are a tech first? Because students from 150 nationalities applied with ApplyBoard last year. So pretty much, again, the platform is meant for you to apply.
And what are the first 10 nationalities? Mainly that Indian.
In South Asia is strong. Southeast Asia, your Vietnam, Philippines. We do really good work in Africa, Pakistan, obviously. So again, all these are really
mostly emerging markets are probably.
Actually, Africa and Asia continue to grow, right? And again, we do not just Canada, we do a bunch of countries, right? So some countries have different preference, right? So anyway, so
that's a false acquisition.
100%. I mean,
because I'm like, this is too rough because I'm also in a business.
Then look at our visa rates and look at our acceptance rates.
Precisely.
Right? Secondly, so again, we are not here obviously, everyone wants to obviously make revenue and whatever profits, but we are here at the end of the day, make sure the student gets guided correctly by a recruitment partner, make sure the student gets a visa, enrolls and succeeds successfully, right? Again, we have no vested interest in breaking any of that because we are not a fly-by-night operator, right? We are obviously
10 years.
10 years there, plus we are.
This is your 10th year anniversary?
Yeah. Plus, we're probably highly regulated, right? Because we have UK presence, so we are GDPR compliant. We are invested by Ontario Teachers Pension Fund in Canada, right? Which is the largest public fund there. So we do have certain norms and conditions which we take very, very seriously, right? We have British Council certification, right? So for example, our teams and partners to a large extent are certified by British Council as well. So again, we do a bunch of these things. So we take all of these things very, very seriously. And yeah, so anyways, but again, the point I'm trying to say is it's also very racist of people to say, "Yari, Canada chala gaya." But again, the institution has a norm. ApplyBoard or any other platform has said, "Oh, they're qualified. They have been given a visa by RCC clearly, so they're in Canada for a reason." So again, it's also very elite for us to say, "Oh, people go to Canada who can't go to the US or whatever," right? But it's an elitist thing to say. Canada has a certain requirement. You have a certain requirement, and again, if the student or wherever or the parent wants them to send them certain place, it's good for them.
And also a student and parents are aware. I mean, we always say that agent did that or university did that. Everyone knows. मुझे अपनी औकात पता थी. मैं 2008 में IIT IIMs नहीं अप्लाई कर सकता था. अब मैं क्रैक कर सकता हूँ. उस समय नहीं कर सकता था. इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं थी. self-belief नहीं था या whatever accessibility नहीं थी, but everyone knows, and then like everyone wants iPhone, but everyone wants buying iPhone. Everyone wants to study in IIT, but they know where their fitment is.
Yeah.
So only putting, and I agree because I feel for it. Only putting all good things on themselves, all bad things on agents and university. It should not be done.
It's a very good point. I think the word is called agency, which means that every human has an agency, especially now, right? That okay, I should be again. हमने जो start करी थी, you should be self-aware, you should be driven. So you cannot say in today's day and age that I did not know, I did this and there weren't no jobs here. So I sympathize, I 100% empathize. ऐसा नहीं है. Maybe there are people who might be misguided, but the basic diligence, lack of diligence cannot be acceptable today. You're spending 50,000 Canadian dollars or in some cases over 100,000 US dollars in doing bachelor's in the US, and you cannot say I did not know that this particular course did not have job opportunities, right? So people have to expend agency, and yes, of course there are bad actors across any industry, right? Whether it's study abroad or whether it's e-commerce or whether it's the food delivery, any industry, and you cannot say that oh, Zomato is bad because this restaurant gave me something else instead of paneer.
And I feel so. I feel very strongly on this. You've been sending what 100,000 students a year?
Not till date. Again, officially we have helped 1 million students make the decision. I should not just send, but make the decision.
But on an average, like so, University Living do around 30,000 students every year all across the globe. Amazing. With their accommodation, right? And
I'm the largest in that business.
No, there are a couple of one Chinese, I can name it, but one who do numbers wise bigger, but then probably we are more profitable. But again, I don't want to.
Again, you're top 3 basically.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But why I'm asking this number, and avoid if you don't want to. Like if you are doing, let's say for example, you're doing 50,000 students a year, right? If there is one person, should not, but if there is 1% discontentment, which company, which industry don't have bad experiences, till the time that company, all that leader is there to fix it up. And as you mentioned, you're not vanishing. You're not by the, leave over, fly by the night. You are not even fly by 10 years.
We own it, right? And I'll give you a great example. I'm really proud again, vision of Methi at that time, right? I mean, there was a certain province in Canada that suddenly there were some private operators that suddenly said, oh, they got regulated or they got shut down. We never worked with those schools and institutions while they were very popular in India. And the reason is that I think Methi and the team had the foresight to say, nah, I don't think these are the right, first of all, private and they're not the right partners for us. We didn't get affected at all by them, right? Even certain times it has happened, to your point, certain student comes in and says, I was not guided by my agent or partner. And again, as ApplyBoard, even though we didn't work with the student directly, but if we do the full investigation and if found, we do figure out a way to make it right. We don't wash our hands of a student or institution or a partner, right? So because again, we go back to the culture and ethos. It's not that, right? It's not a transaction. We think it's a long-term thing. So again, that I think that's also one of probably going back to your point about reasons for success. You email Methi, you email me, we will take it up. And we will, if, as fair as possible, we'll try and resolve that thing. Even if it's an offer letter nahi aaya versus commission nahi aaya versus student gaya or something happened, ki tuition nahi pahuncha and some shenanigans happened or didn't happen. So we take that ownership. So again, the point about, I'm sure you are in the service industry, same thing. If a student goes and doesn't get accommodation, you cannot say, oh, my partner flunked, so I cannot do anything. The University Living brand is important. Your reputation and your team's work is important. So I think same thing, as long as you're following that ethos, unfortunately, a certain percentage of things will happen because we are services industry. And we'll make it up.
It's a human nature. Thing. There's so much factor at play that even, I always say that we have 4.6, 4.7 on Trustpilot. We used to be 4.9.
Wow.
Right? But if
as you scale it,
but till the time you are still 4 plus, 4, 5, 4.5 and it's very important that I tell my team, we make mistakes, it's human. But are you doing purposely? Should not. And if it happened unpurposely or even purposely, let now show, don't just vanish, take onus and try to fix it. We might not have a solution, but be around, try to figure out. If that is part been taken care, if students are happy and they've been heard, I believe you will be around, you will continue to grow.
Yeah. So student first approach.
Always.
We believe in that.
So you mentioned that you are international students, right? And you have, in fact, as we have the same journey in different trajectory and direction. So you studied in hostels in IIT. Then you studied in Rutgers, away from family. Then you studied in ISB in hostels. You know, you've been an immigrant and setting up your. So you also in last 25-30 years you must have changes multiple rooms, and house, apartments, cities. All those students who are looking to go abroad and they are still struggling to get best of the city, country, course. But what should they do about post-admission? Housing, how should one go about it?
No, again, it's one of the, I'm passionate about a lot of things. I'm passionate about this as well. Aapne jo bola na ki there's a lot of information here. So there's a lot of misinformation as well, right? I'll briefly explain my example from 20 years ago. When I went to Rutgers 2003, I had a friend who already had a roommate. And we all had scholarships, keep that in mind, which means that our tuition was taken care of. We are either teaching assistant or research assistant. So we used to get a little bit of money back from Rutgers. We lived, 4 of us, again, I think all from IITs, Kharagpur, Roorkee, whatever, used to stay in a 1-bedroom apartment. Me and Joydeep Acharya, who's now a very senior guy, I think in California, a good friend, we used to stay on mattresses in the drawing room, and 2 of our stay in the bedroom. And mattress bhi humne kahin garbage utha ke leke aaye the, right? I still have nightmares about that mattress. But the point I'm trying to say is that, but again, we were lucky. And there were friends and from, for example, I think there were Magaraj and Maharashtra, similar apartment, there used to be 10 of them living in that because they didn't have a scholarship, right? But they've really worked hard and most of them, I think, are still in the US doing really well. The short story I'm trying to say is that study abroad is hard. Even in our case, we didn't have a car. And if you expect, the first time we got a car was Joy, jab shayad PhD mein aa gaya tha, he had I remember he bought a very old Honda Civic for $2,000-3,000, like really old model, and that was our car. We used to take the bus everywhere to get groceries, whatever. So the point of study abroad, I'm really passionate, is be right with your expectations. Even if you're scholarship or not scholarship, it is hard. You will have to find roommates. Actually, at that time, we didn't have amazing platform like University Living. Otherwise, it would have made it much more easier to figure this out, but you had to go with network and family. But now you can exactly see where to stay, how to stay, how much is this. So you have to be very clear about your expectations. You have to manage your budget. You have to be, it's not a given ke ab main kar lunga, mujhe internship lag jayegi. You have to hustle, you have to go around. That was true 20 years ago, that's true even now. So please be very, very clear and be set with the expectations. Don't get misled by a reel or a whatever TikTok. TikTok I don't think is there in India. But don't be misled and say, "Arey, wo to bada acha hai, wo bada jeep leke ghum raha hai, kya kar raha hai?" People, I don't know what reason they do it. 90% of the students, I would say, I don't want to use the word struggle, but have to
earn it
and make that and do a little bit of struggle. It's okay to take a bus in minus 20 degrees in Canada. It is okay to go 2 hours to do a job. Meri jo internship thi was wo bhi Rutgers ne nahi lagwai. I had to go through my mama's friend who was to consult for Citigroup, and then that was in Connecticut. So I used to take NJ Transit to New York. Then I used to take Metro North to
every day
Stamford every day for 3 months or 2 months. I'll tell you why. And then a bus to so I had to take a 2-hour one-way trip from New Jersey to get to Connecticut and back again. So I started reading books again, which was great. But it was a good internship in Citigroup, but 2 hours away. Agar main kehta nahi mujhe New Brunswick mein hi Google aake internship de de, no. But then again, I had a good friend. So I had a good friend, Anshuman, IIT Bombay, a very good close friend. So who was interning in New York at that time. So he had an apartment. So again, an apartment jahan pe main free mein 1 mahine reh liya. So I had to. So but my commute was big, right? And so these things you have to do all of them, but it's well worth the effort.
Is there stories? In fact, जब आप रटगर्स से न्यू जर्सी से कनेक्टेड जाते होगे, जो आपने वो इकोनॉमी एरिया को समझा होगा, you experience it. See, when you go abroad, it's not about classrooms. It's not about what lectures and professor. It's about a Chinese or a Malaysian sitting with you, and you understand them, and you go through the journey. In fact, I mean, if I will send my kid to go abroad, it will not be because of those ranks and those courses and status. It will be
experience. Yeah.
I really want her to go through the journey, with that limited budget, wherein she should learn finances by managing it. Otherwise, that's a real education.
Learn to deal with people, learn to face rejection.
I would say that's a real education.
That's a real education.
It's not just on the class.
Yeah. So that will not, reel or TikTok or whatever will not teach you that. So, and I think you should be ready for that. And it's such an enriching experience.
And that's what we are, right? Today, if we do something new or right from the scratch, I guess that confidence is coming because kiya hai. हमें पता है हाथ से गंदा किया, हमें पता है how it takes and how it feels when you are in 5,000 miles away from your home country, and there's no pillow, duvet, and you don't know where you have your next meal. Of course, you know, we were privileged, you know, but very true, very true. Coming back to you, sir, you know, and you know, this is fun. Anything you want to ask me, then we'll go back. Anything, like I have been asking you tough questions and rough questions.
I think just on that last topic, I mean, what was the motivation to start university living? Probably I should have done it 20 years ago because I saw it was very tough, but you didn't go study abroad. आपको कहाँ से idea आया?
Right. So I guess, I mean, I've been, you mentioned I'm so active on LinkedIn also. I have mentioned multiple times, but I know you're busy. So let me, you know, for your purpose and anyone who probably still have not heard it. So it was, I went with the flow. You know, I was doing my master's in Infinity Business School. I got an opportunity to go to NTU for an exchange program in January.
Singapore,
no, NTU, London, UK, Nottingham.
Okay.
Nottingham Trent. I went to Nottingham Trent.
Okay.
I went to Nottingham Trent for an exchange program. I was doing my masters in India.
Right?
I went on exchange. I went in January. Right? मुझे किसी से पता है नहीं, मैंने पूछा नहीं. I was like कि जा रहे हो exchange तो accommodation मिलता ही होगा. You know? So I went there and you know the university was kind enough to give me 2 nights stay and then figure out yourself. And that's how I experienced it. Still there was no thing that I'll start something this. I came back. I completed my masters, started my first job with Kotak Securities, but lots of family, friends, you know, they came to me like, "Acha, tu gaya tha, tune to figure out kiya." So one thing led to another. Then I have a roommate who's my co-founder, Mayank. So me and Mayank have the same story. We were together for almost 7-8 years as a roommates.
Right.
You know, sharing beds, not rooms. In fact, you know, in India, sharing beds are okay. You know, we are straight. You know, but he went to UK to Northampton. I'm like, "Bhai, book karke jana." You know, मेरी तो दिक्कत हुई थी. So he listened to me, but again had a bad experience, very torrid experience, because he stayed with a cool couple, right? Who, you know, he paid everything upfront.
Like a homestay kind of.
Homestay. He paid or a unorganized apartment, what we call it. He paid everything upfront. You know, 7 बजे breakfast मिलता था, 5 बजे dinner. कोई आ नहीं सकता, कोई जा नहीं सकता. You know, so that was his experience.
Right.
So I guess I was chosen, as we say, we have chosen one. You know, and now even after, you know, like when we were in 2017-18, my current CFO, you know, his daughter went to Sydney, faced some music.
Right.
My CTO, who's my now CPO, his son. So we have chosen one, and we went with the flow, and we figured out a gap, right? And we still need to do so much because there's still, like, you have cracked it, a B2B platform. You know, on a recruitment side, accommodation even more tricky because it's unorganized.
This is more long term.
It's more long term and it's more unorganized, and you need to own the experience.
Yeah.
But sorry, you know, if you were asking question and
which is very interesting, right? Which is same as like Methi Masi and some of us, like we were international students, so they were passionate about it, and I became passionate later about it. So same thing with you, right? Which I think again, not that is I think the qualification of an entrepreneur, but I think that gives a special extra dimension, not just for storytelling, it's actual experience. I think which makes a lot of difference.
बोलोगे? See, मैंने यही story ना, अब मैं आँखों में उठा के भी बोलूँ, मैं same story बोलूँगा because real है.
This is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah.
No, so I think that's great. I think that's why we vibe so well because
we lived it.
We lived it.
And we know how tough it is to build business and how tough it is to sustain business.
Right.
You mentioned one thing, you know, anything else you want to ask? I'm so sorry.
No.
You mentioned you guys are not going anywhere. You know, it's a tough year.
Yeah.
You know, and there are lots of talks about, you know, and especially when you are a leader.
Right.
You know, 2 लोग छोड़ के भी जाते हैं ना, तो ग्रेव टाइम होना शुरू हो जाती है. यार हालत खराब है, फंड रेज नहीं हो रहे, you know, numbers नहीं हो रहे, you know, and I'm sure, you know, you must be hearing all these things, you know, to all your well-wishers.
Right.
What do you want to say?
I think when you say to all your well-wishers, what we would like to say is that again, I have to reflect on this one. But I think, see, again, we have not changed our ethos on what we want to do. We have obviously have to adapt our execution and strategy on what we need to do. And I'm confident that we will continue to do it. It's this has been obviously a tough environment for all of us, not at the very least, most of it, I think, for the students themselves who wanted to go and suddenly have to change their plans, whatever, right? But I don't think the investment and the human capital that we have developed, that just doesn't disappear like that, right?
Yeah.
We still have 1,600 partner institutions globally, right?
Wow.
We do have the same technology which continues to improve. We have obviously worked closely with Microsoft on implementing what we call as Abby, which is a chat GPT implementation, so that, okay, people don't want to search anymore. They can chat, like similar to Sabby. I think it rhymes, right? That you guys have. So again, we'll continue to evolve. Our human capital, our partnerships will continue to evolve. Yes, of course, we are still a private company, so there are certain flexibility, but there's also certain constraints in terms of how we want to operate. But again, our leadership, Methi is our CEO now, I think how we're doing it, and the fantastic team that we have on the ground, those are the people, as long as they are passionate and they're living and breathing what we do every day, I am confident that I think it's an hump, we'll get over it.
I'm sure. I mean, yeah. I'm not saying it because, you've been supporting us, we are super excited to get ApplyBoard on board and helping your students all across with accommodation.
Yes.
And we know the real things, So this is the beauty is people have all the opinions, right? And the fact is, anyone who is around for 10 years should be around for another 20 years and will be around.
Especially in industry, which is education is not going away. Study abroad is
macros are intact.
Macros is intact. I think I wish all the best. The Indian education continues to elevate and becomes better, make it accessible, affordable. But the sheer volume, if you look at officially, 600,000 to 700,000 students are going abroad every year. It will continue to grow because, again, one is world is getting more cosmopolitan, despite some politicians recently elected might say. People see the value of international students, again, whether they stay or whether they come back. The world is a flatter place, right? Despite it might not seem so from the news that we see and the conflicts that we see. So it's a great space to be in. So if the space is growing, you are at a leadership position, you have good human capital, technology, and your ethos in place. Subject to obviously certain financial markets and private or public investments. I think obviously if you manage it well, I think it is okay.
How do you see someone who is next Saif of the industry or ApplyBoard? Someone who want to join University Living, or some say, like someone who is probably not as big as ApplyBoard.
Right.
As a leader who's a part of the industry, or probably who are already in the industry and they are like the mid-level, or
right.
What they should learn from your journey to be Saif of their company or industry.
Again, I'm not one to obviously say that I'm the right template, but again, if you ask my personal opinion, I think one is that I think sincerity goes a long way. I think it's okay not to know stuff, it's okay to mess up execution, but that sincerity to learn and then make it up, it's important. Please don't fake, because people figure out very quickly if you're
don't bullshit around.
Don't fake, don't suck up, because that might take you to some way, but I haven't seen leaders who have been suck ups all their life. I mean, of course, there are exceptions there, but I think you'll get found out, especially in industries which are fast moving, dynamic, and a startup. Maybe an established old company, it might work very, very well. And so I think be authentic, be sincere, be a lifelong learner, right? I think I really liked it, right? Again, be inspired by your new ISB stint. So for example, I'm taking a course from University of Chicago on revenue, being a chief revenue officer, for example, right? Learning some interesting things over there. There are a lot of people who come from SaaS background who I'm learning from. So be a lifelong learner, I think, is a great advice. And the third thing is, again, be tough. I mean, if you want to be, but be people friendly. People should look up to you. People should come to you with advice. And yes, if you're tough, it's okay. People should take that toughness as a way to call to action. But don't be an asshole, right? But so that people be tough, but people also trust you and say, okay, Saurabh or Saif, give me some advice. So again, that's how you grow as a leader. Both. Don't just do upward management. Don't just do downward management. Be balanced. Be authentic, and be yourself.
Very, very. I mean, this is learning for me also. I've written down a couple of things. How you see AI adoption in higher education?
Again, I don't think it will replace a brick and mortar. I think it becomes a very good enabler. It also allows self-driven, very self-motivated people to go and build companies, billion-dollar companies on their own. I think that's
faster
today. But again, that's 0.001% of the world, right? For you to, unless you are that, good luck and do it. But I do think education and that classroom environment continues to be very important. AI will become a very good enabler, subject to don't plagiarize essays or papers, please. I mean, you will be found out very quickly. AI will itself tell you that this is plagiarized. So use it as a really, you have to use it. Use it as an enabler. use it to become smarter, use it to do better, and use it to build companies if you can.
It's a new internet, it's a new laptop, it's a new phone.
Exactly, that's a good way to say it.
Beyond technology, what big shifts do you predict in global student mobility over next 5 years?
I think
And quick, like probably a minute.
Big shift is obviously new countries will become more and more accessible, and I think the world's population is aging. Japan is historically a closed country, but again, and their population has been declining. Likewise in South Korea, so they'll become more amenable. If they're smart, they will attract that talent which is going, for example, to the Western Hemisphere. And if students are smart, there are great opportunities not just in North America but elsewhere, right? So I think that's one big trend. Second is that while obviously STEM, technology, all these things are very big, I think healthcare is obviously up and coming. So there's no reason why you're a technology guy, you should not look at healthcare or whatever, or healthcare person looking at technology. So look at new ways of looking at. There's no well-defined engineer and doctor path we started with. That path is not necessary for you today. Even if you're, for example, on the art side from economics or stuff, again, earlier you had to do an MBA, but I think with AI and all those coming in, I think there is amazing paths that are available to you to chart your own career over there, either studying abroad or moving abroad for work. So I think those are some of the key trends in terms of countries, courses, and career paths.
Great. About you, sir? Before we do a rapid fire, you want to have a water?
I'm okay.
And there's no hamper.
I've done 2.5-3 hour plays. Not all the time on the set. I was a very, very poor actor, but I was a great director.
So you have given up now?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's one of the things I should try and do.
Once actor is always actor.
But I'm lazy. I mean, but again, to be honest, 90% of my leadership skills came because of dramatics at Roorkee.
Agree. How to get people together, make them.
How to lead, how to organize our stuff. You don't have to be a good actor. You have to be a good actor, organizer, director.
Organizer. In fact, there was some podcast I went to, and they're like, "You were a leader you were born leader, or you were leadership in skits." I'm like, no, I'm just learning on them, and I introspect. I'm like, no. When I was in 5th standard or 6th standard, I used to collect all my friends and cricket khelege. I used to arrange all those kits and even stole money at home and to buy a bat and all that.
So you were the guy, yeah.
वो मेरा बैट और बॉल मेरी होती थी तो बैटिंग मैं करता था.
I had a friend like that in Allahabad. वही बेचारा इंथू करके ना come let's play. So good. Those are the people who become leaders, I think.
What's the first app you open in the morning?
Twitter. X.
If you could have dinner with any business leader, past or present, who would it be?
It's a good question. I'm not typically very inspired by business leaders in my life. Again, I don't want to sound cliched, but I think Steve Jobs would have been a very, very interesting person to talk to. He's just a brilliant guy.
The last thing you Googled?
Last thing I Googled was, I checked DeepSeek actually. So I've been looking at DeepSeek. So I attended an interesting session yesterday at ASU JSV conference about Khan Academy, and they were talking about enablement. So I literally checked DeepSeek. Can you talk about the education outcomes of Indian primary school students in India in the last 10 years? Because I want to see if all that tech and AI has actually improved the outcomes. Sadly, it has not. That's a separate topic we can talk about later. So I actually, that was the last thing I was interested in. At one time, I was very, very passionate. Actually, when I was applying for my MBA, I was very passionate about education piece even then. Because I really, coming from your original point of tier 2, tier 3, I think education makes a lot of difference. We have not made education equal.
For us, that was the only level, no?
That's the only
level.
There was
no level. अगर आप पढ़ाई नहीं कर रहे, क्लास में अच्छे नहीं तो आपको अमीर लोग अच्छे लोग बुलाते नहीं थे. वो बुलाते नहीं तो आपकी aspiration नहीं बनती.
Yeah, so I was very curious if that has improved. Unfortunately, it has not, and that is, I think, because India doesn't spend money on education, which we should as a country.
The best advice you have ever received in your career?
As I said, career is a sprint. Career is not a sprint; it's a marathon. Don't stress if someone is better than you or higher than you. Stay focused on what you're doing. This is I gonna use somewhere. I chip off this thing. If you could have any superpower for a day, what would it be? Superpower for a day, I would say again, something suddenly get all our primary school kids up to grade 5 reading, math level, because that early childhood education determines your rest of your life, unfortunately. Same thing, if there are a lot of studies have been done in the US, kind of example. That's why why, for example, they subsidize preschool, at least in Canada or UK, because if the student is not exposed, or the kid is not exposed to the language or basic skills, they continue to struggle for the rest of life. So at least for Indian students in a gaon or tier 2, tier 3, I wish all of them become at least grade 5 level, and then may the best win.
A common mistake students make when choosing a study destination.
I think not doing their own research and just going by hearsay.
Totally agree. One thing Canada does better than any other study destination for students.
I think it's aligned to labor market. The colleges, if you see, are there because they realized long back that not everyone needs a 4-year bachelor education. Not everyone needs to go to masters. You need to learn trade, you need to do this, and you go to the labor market. So that college thing, and people, unfortunately, India elsewhere say, "Arey, college," and they think it's some other thing, but that they have done a really, really good job of. And that's something that as Canadians, we're really proud of, that whole college education system.
That's a wrap. My friend Saif, and I guess they're no hamper. So let me thank you, and I only give you, I'll give you blessings. Dua mein yaad rakhuga. So that's it for this episode. Thank you if you have been watching it till the end, because giving time is the biggest currency. And the next thing I really want, if you can continue to share feedback. As we are very clear, we're not doing for news, views, or it's a free podcast till yet. We only doing to bring success stories, real success stories like that. And if you see the pattern, no success story of studying abroad has happened after like 2 years or 3 years.
Exactly.
You need to be around, as you mentioned. You need to be patient. You need to stick around. You need to open to learn, to take risks, or at least have the right expectation. Because study abroad is not a magic wand. It's definitely an advantage. It definitely gives you an edge, but you need to be hardworking. You need to be open and give it a time. So even you will do great. And to all the industry, thank you so much for supporting this podcast. Thank you so much for bearing with my lengthy LinkedIn post and now podcast. I'm doing it for my best interest. I want to learn. I want to learn from people like Saif. I want to learn from all the policymaker, change maker, and this is one leveler for me. And so happy that we are getting a very positive response, and there are so many people who want to come and talk about their journey and their stories, and even clarify here. So thank you for your support, and let's make this higher education industry or a startup industry a better place to work and more happier place to work. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.